Recording in progress.
I'll call this meeting, this January 14th, 2025 Fairfield Plan and Zoning Commission special meeting to order. Our meeting minutes from December 10th and December 17th here. On the item, Chair Harrison.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Second, Commissioner, if I have all my regulars, then Commissioners Corsillo. Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, I think that was good. No issues.
Corsillo.
Further.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioners Braun and Levy, are you there?
I'm here.
Thank you.
Here, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
No comments.
Thank you. I just want to make sure you can hear.
Sure.
And I can hear you. I'll put this to a vote. Those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Commissioner Braun?
I raised my hand on the emoji, but aye.
Well, if you can, yeah, that's,
I guess that didn't work. Okay.
yeah, for you and Commissioner Levy, if you can just say it verbally, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a point of order, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry. This is my fault. You have an older version of the agenda when you called. You said it was a special meeting tonight.
Oh, that's right.
We made an error. I made an error in the initial publication of the agenda, which has since been corrected. So I just want everybody to know this is a regular meeting.
Yes, thank you. So this is, again.
That was my mistake. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I remember and I just,
We gave you a bad cap.
I read it. So regular meeting for tonight, doesn't change. Our meeting minutes were adopted unanimously. 5545 Park Avenue, request of Arthur Hirsch for 100% release of a $105,060 bond pertaining to site improvements in the R3 zone.
Mr. Chairman, you may recall that this item was on our agenda in December where they were up for 100% release, and we had a memo recommending a 50% release at that time, which you approved. We have a subsequent memo saying the remaining items that were left to be done have been completed, and the engineering department is now recommending release of the final 50% or in effect 100% release of the bond.
Thank you. We have a motion on the item, please.
I move.
That's okay. Commissioner Braun moves, seconds by Corsillo.
I
Commissioner
have a
Braun.
quick question.
Go ahead.
So, this has a C of O already. In fact, it's part of our moratorium list, isn't it? So, is there a reason why the bond gets released like months after the C of O is issued? Was there more work that had to be done afterwards? I don't remember what happened a month ago.
Yeah, there was, well, the one remaining thing, there was a piece of crosswalk that had to be striped, but it's not uncommon for a C of O to be issued prior to the bond. There could be things like some landscaping work or other things where the season may not be right to do that, but they're otherwise approved for occupancy, but a couple of housekeeping items
Okay.
need to be done. So it's not uncommon for a CO to precede your release of bond.
But engineering has confirmed that all the required work has been completed, so we can return the rest of the bond.
Yes, they have.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Corsillo.
Engineering is signed off, so good to release.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Harrison, you have your hand up?
No, I didn't.
I'm sorry, I thought I caught it. Seeing none, take this to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
And Levy?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Next section, there are 4 items for recommendation to public hearing. In case anybody's here for these items, this is only to move them to a future public hearing. I'll call them together. Zoning regulation amendment, application of Fairfield Medical LLC to amend section 29.8.2, 29.10.1 of the zoning regulations regarding signs. Zoning regulation amendment, application of 441 Post Road LLC to amend section 10 4.4 of the zoning regulations in the design residence district, 441 Post Road special permit, section 24.0 and 25.0, and coastal site plan applications of 441 Post Road LLC pertaining to a mixed-use hotel and residential development in the design residence district. And finally, 2179, 2199 Post Road and 29 Fairfield Place, zoning compliance application of Sunshine Acquisition Group LLC for a 60-unit residential development pursuant to section 830G Connecticut General Statutes in the design commercial district. Mr. Went, anything to say about them individually, or can we move to vote?
I would entertain, get a motion, then I can just go
Sure, let's do that
take
then.
30 seconds.
Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, I'll make a motion for recommendation to public hearing, A, B, C, and D as they're listed on tonight's agenda.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second it.
Commissioner Braun seconds.
I really don't have anything to add other than items B and C are companion applications for the Circle Hotel proposal. Item A is a sign regulation proposal regarding mainly the Hartford Healthcare building on Black Rock Turnpike. And item D is the Plan B application. As you heard the applicant say, because of the pending moratorium, we have an ongoing application for that property, but they've got a backup application here for that. So I have one other thing to say about scheduling, but I would go ahead and vote on this, and then I've got one more thing to say on scheduling.
Commissioner Harrison?
Just a question for D. I know we're still seeing that we're still at the public hearing on their current application.
Yes,
Are they kind of just waiting to see what happens there?
they are. I think, as you know, we have scheduled that hearing to continue on the 28th of this month. It is our hope that we can conclude those proceedings that night, and then you would have deliberations at a February meeting. So we would anticipate that you would have acted on the pending application, Plan A, if you will, prior to opening the hearing on this second application. But by virtue of the time clock that's ticking, they've made this application.
No, I understood. I know Attorney Fallon made that clear last time.
We are hopeful that we don't have to have overlapping hearings. That is.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
We have a jam-packed schedule. In fact, I think we might be meeting every Tuesday in February. That's a thought that hasn't been effectuated yet, but I have a sense that's going to happen based on all the new applications. But I believe that some of these regulation amendments could be separated and not heard at the same time as a permit, a special permit, especially if the regulation amendment is not confined to one project, if it's confined to a region of town or the whole town. Like, for example, when we looked at the Stilson Road one, they actually withdrew that application, but that related to the whole town, not just one application. And here we have one applicant for a sign amendment. Probably they need it for their application, but it's not associated with one. So we're taking that up separately. But the other one that's put forth by the 441 Post Road LLC, I believe that applies to the entire Post Road, not just to that one address. Therefore, I would suggest that we separate them so that we are not unduly influenced for or against based on a site permit application that happens to take place, proposed by the same entity. And also for our own efficiency, perhaps when we wear our planning hat, we're acting as a planning commission, we should hear planning, text amendments and regulation changes in separate meetings, and maybe even piggyback onto the POCD meeting we're doing next week. That's my suggestion for a few different reasons that I just explained.
The applicant has put forth these applications. I think it's somewhat just incumbent on us to listen to them, but I always find when they're jointly heard, I physically get to see what the impact of the regulation is. I always find it to be very helpful in that respect. And I'm not so sure what discretion we have, Mr. Went, in separating them out. As Commissioner Braun has suggested.
Well, I would say that they are separate applications and there's separate actions that you take. So when you have an application that has multiple pieces to it, they're separate and distinct votes. So yes, I agree that you'd be acting in your planning capacity when you're voting on a zoning regulation amendment. But the other companion pieces of it are separate votes. So they are separate applications, separate action that you take.
She's suggesting having them on separate days.
Well, I don't know that that creates any efficiencies. I think that's going to make it even more challenging with respect to the calendar challenges that we've got before us. But for example, a zone change application requires a special permit, a companion special permit application. Text amendment's a little different. It is a standalone item, I would agree. But that's why they're separate items on the call rather than together.
I feel that sometimes we feel pressured for or against just based on what the application itself might be, when in actuality, the text amendment could relate to the entire town, or in this case, to the entire post road. Anybody with 6 acres or combining lots could take advantage of this application. So to me, it should be heard separately, so we're not unduly influenced either way. We can imagine our own impact based on that. And I was just thinking, since we already have, and I know the same timeframes apply when we wear our planning hat, the same timeframes I believe apply as with a permit, but I don't think this would delay it. We have a 3.5 hour session set aside for our planning role, which is a different function next week, where we're taking up the POCD. Perhaps we could squeeze in some discussion of these 2 text amendments during that, as opposed to putting them with the permit applications.
The next session is, I know it's not, what did?
Can I?
Yeah.
My response to that would be that it wouldn't be appropriate to discuss pending regulation amendments next week outside of the scope of a public hearing. We haven't had a public hearing on those. They haven't been aired. If you want in deliberations to have potentially a separate discussion, you will have a separate discussion on the implications of a regulation amendment. But it wouldn't be appropriate to have a discussion about 2 pending regulation amendments at a planning meeting. We're talking about the PUCD because they haven't been publicly presented yet.
I
understand. Well, at minimum,
Commissioner Braun, hold on. Let me shortchange this a bit, because this is just recommendations to hearing. We have other business to get to at this point. We're not going to be scheduling anything right now. So can we move this on? Can we vote on these recommendations to public hearing?
Okay. Yep.
Any other comments or questions from the commission? Can we put this to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That's 7, so they are moved.
Just to follow up, the one follow-up thing that I was going to say is what Commissioner Braun has already said, because we did have a conversation about this today, is just preemptively. Our regular meetings dates in February are the 11th and the 18th. Just looking ahead, we've booked this facility for the other 2 Tuesdays, which are the 4th and the 25th. I will prepare a roster, if you will, of the pending applications and when we sequence that at least we would recommend they be heard for your subject to your review. Just so everybody knows what's kind of stacked up on the tarmac waiting for clearance and how we might slot those. So, and then we can further the discussion. But
could we also post? It's hard to find things that are posted. Sometimes if it's just up for a future hearing, but not on an agenda yet, we can't find the application materials. It would be really great to have more time, not waiting for the agenda to be able to link over to the new matters, since we have such a tight schedule going forward.
In that note, if you go to where the agenda items are posted, there's another folder in there for pending applications. So all of it, for example, all the 441 post road materials are posted. They haven't been slotted into a date yet.
Okay.
So they're just listed under pending, but there's a pending applications folder in that same page, and they're all in there. If you have any trouble with that, just give me a call. I can help
Thank
you get that.
Appreciate it.
That's all I had to suggest.
No, thank you. Yeah, because it's again, I think we've all kind
I
of.
just want to be mindful that please look at your calendars. We are likely, because of the volume of activity, likely going to need all those meetings in February. So nothing's set in stone, but I'll put out a preliminary schedule for you for your consideration.
Thank you. 131 Sasko Hill Road, re-subdivision application of Grant Panarese, excuse me, for 2 lots in an A zone.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the subject parcel is at the corner, is a corner lot, excuse me, at the northerly corner of Sasko Hill Road and Tide Mill Terrace in an A zone. It's important to note that this property was subject to a prior subdivision approval in 1982. And the approved subdivision map was recorded as map number 5066 on the land records. Subsequent improvements by a predecessor owner, which consist of a rear addition and then later the construction of a pool, effectively merged the parcels because the pool is on the other side of what was that 1982 property line. The current owner, as you heard, wishes to remove the portion of the existing dwelling in order to reestablish the property line, allowing for that second parcel. The existing pool is proposed to remain on the new lot and will be an accessory use to the proposed new dwelling on Lot B. Both lots meet the design requirements for the A zone. The minimum lot size is 9,375 square feet. Lot A will have 11,927 square feet. Lot B will have 10,505 square feet. Roof leader detention is proposed for the new dwelling to the satisfaction of the engineering department. Conservation Department has confirmed that no wetlands permit is required as the site does not contain any wetlands, nor is it within the 100-foot upland review area. Subdivision regulations require concrete curbs, sidewalk, and driveway aprons to be installed. They are shown on the plan. As you heard at the hearing, several neighbors object to the installation of sidewalks as disruptive and incongruous to the neighborhood. There are presently no curbs or sidewalks on Tide Mill Terrace and an asphalt curb and no sidewalk along the Sasko Hill frontage. The tree warden has confirmed subsequent to the meeting that if a sidewalk is required, 3 ornamental cherries and 1 30-inch maple would need to be removed from Tide Mill Terrace, and replanting of 4 trees would be required. If sidewalks are waived, there's room for 1 additional shade tree. That is all I have at this point, subject to any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Wett. May I have a motion on the item? Mr. Harrison?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the subdivision application of Mr. Panarese for 2 lots.
Second.
Or do you want to talk about that? We have to have in, right now, the motion to approve includes the sidewalks unless there's a.
It can be supplemented after your discussion.
Okay, fair enough. Let's leave it at that. Then I heard a second from Commissioner Braun. So Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, I thought the applicant met our requirements outlined in our subdivision regulations. I also thought he made a pretty cogent argument on why this is a necessity for him in this house.
Commissioner Braun?
Question for Mr. Wendt. So this already had a subdivision map on file, and they're seeking to slightly modify the lot sizes to enable this particular house size. So now a new map will be filed?
Well, yes. What happened was the subdivision was approved in 1982 and that map went on record. A subsequent owner of the lot owned both parcels and did improvements to a rear addition to the home that would have encroached on that property line, the rear property line, and also built a pool on the other lot. So effectively merging the 2 parcels. So in order to reestablish the property line between the 2 parcels, they re-subdivision. We consulted the town attorney and it was their opinion, since it was a subdivision and it was effectively merged, it would require a re-subdivision application to basically put the line back, which is what you have before you.
Okay, so I would support this, and we heard all the neighbors' comments, especially about trees and screening, and we have basically less discretion when we follow our subdivision regulations. But I do have one condition that I would like to impose, which is no sidewalks, in order to save the 3 or 4 trees that would have to be removed to insert sidewalks, especially since there are no sidewalks in that area, nor any plan to put sidewalks right there. So I don't think it helps to have a sidewalk to nowhere. And I definitely want the trees, especially the large specimen trees that was on the corner facing Tide Mill or Tide, that the road that's the crossroad, next
Mill
to
Terrace.
yeah, that large tree that everybody was talking about. So no trees, I believe, would have to be removed, but the condition would be no sidewalks, but don't remove any trees. And if you remove trees, replace them.
Well, I'm not,
How do I add that condition?
Well, I think
you're
that's,
talking about in the town right of way?
Well, I guess you're right. I guess the tree warden only controls trees in the town right of way, and he was talking about 3 or 4 trees in the town right of way.
Correct. 3 ornamental cherries and 1 30-inch maple.
And the tree that everyone was talking about as a specimen tree, was that the big maple, or is that another tree?
No, that's a maple tree that's on lot B.
That's in the lot, right?
Yes.
So can
Which
we
will be,
the plans did not encompass removing that tree, did they? I don't recall.
no, that tree is definitely going to be removed.
Oh, it will.
Yes.
The big specimen tree?
It's in the middle of where the house is proposed to be.
Well, can we make a condition that that tree be replaced, since it's a pretty large tree?
I don't believe that's in our discretion.
You could suggest they plant a replacement tree on the site, but I don't know that you can compel them to do so. What the tree warden is suggesting, if there's agreement not to do the sidewalks, the existing 4 cherry trees, the maple can remain, but the tree warden is suggesting 1 additional tree also to be planted in the right of way.
Then I would add that as a condition of approval. At least that would make up for the other tree.
Trees be condition of approval? Or
The additional street tree, absolutely.
it can be, okay. Commissioner Harrison, Commissioner Braun is requesting those 2 conditions of approval.
Yeah, I'm amenable to them.
It's just a clarifying question. You're talking about the sidewalk. Are you also talking about eliminating the curbs as well?
Do the curbs are the curbs necessary without a sidewalk, or are they part of the sidewalk?
There's no current curbing on Tide Mill Terrace. So I don't think it would implicate the trees one way or the other, but if the sidewalks are being removed, I would also think that you would also waive the curbs as well.
I would think so too. I would waive the curbs also.
Yeah, and I appreciate Mr. Wendt's commentary. Yeah.
Motion is to approve with the conditions of waiving the sidewalks and the curb cuts, having the 1 additional tree per the tree warden. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Levy, go ahead.
I have just one question for clarity. Would the additional tree be the responsibility of the town in the right of way or the homeowner?
It would be the responsibility of the subdivider to plant it, but it would ultimately become a town tree.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? We put this to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. All right. Next is our public hearing and item 467 Tungus Hill Road, 80 Soundview Avenue, zoning compliance application of Jeffrey Bengelli for a 46-unit residential development pursuant to section 830G of the statutes, the neighborhood design business district and residence B zone.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
I need to do a recap, please.
Pardon me?
Give me a
Oh,
minute.
you're recapping?
I just want to recap where we are, and 2 items that need to be brought up, and then Commissioner Braun. Where
Okay.
we left off, as I remember, and Attorney Hollister and Mr. Wendt can correct me if I'm wrong. We had gone through the initial presentation. We had gone through public comments. We are now at rebuttal. But rebuttal, since in between the hearings, we've had a new documents presented by applicant and public, which are fine and be accepted. So we will have rebuttal from Attorney Hollister. We will go back to the public for comments limited to the new items only. And then finally back to Attorney Hollister for final rebuttal. Did I say that approximately right, Attorney Hollister?
You counted it correctly, yes.
Two things. First, one of the things that I saw was a traffic report from the opposition. It was Simcoe, I believe. Right. It was addressed to me, which is fine. Dear Chairman and the Commission, which is fine. But it also said I was retained by you to do the following. So to be clear, the Commission certainly didn't retain anybody. I assume that was just a typographical error. Can we agree on that? Yeah, okay. Just want to be clear on that because I thought that was kind of a thing that was noted. I know that there was a request from yourself to Commissioner Harrison, so I'll let her speak.
Yeah,
And I think
Not yet. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and I know this letter is in the record from Attorney Hollister. Good to see you again tonight. Thank you. Dear Commissioner Harrison, as you know, we represent the applicant in the above referenced application. It has come to our attention, in addition to articles you have published advocating the repeal of 830G, you are now the president of C2 169 Strong, an organization that advocates against 830G and in many situations affordable housing. Noting first that we are just doing our job, we are writing to you at the Commission's January 14th, 2025 continued public hearing on Francis Hill Road application. State on the record whether you believe you can and will in processing and acting on the application to be fair, unbiased, and following the state law, including 830G's direction as to when the zoning commission may or may not deny an application. We are not demanding that you recuse yourself, but we are asking that you state your ability to act on this application in light of your extensive public advocacy and current position with CT 169 Strong. Thank you. I do have a statement to make.
Just a quick question. Who was that letter sent to?
This was sent to me from Attorney Hollister.
So just to an individual?
No,
To me.
Yeah, it was made part of the record. It was sent to the Commission. So he has it directed to Commissioner Harrison. It was directed to her.
Yeah, and I think it's important for me just to correct a few mischaracterizations that are in your letter. CT 169 Strong, it was formed several years ago by local residents, people who come to our meetings all the time, and just average citizens in response to multiple bills that were in front of the legislator that really disempower our local zoning boards. I've been involved with the organization extensively. It's a small group of us, to be honest. And at one point I did serve as president. I am not president anymore, which is in your letter. So I hope you know that.
I did. I thought I did.
No, I just stated it. You just said I was president. I'm currently president.
You are now.
I am not.
Oh, I saw something that said you were, so I apologize.
Okay,
I had assumed.
okay, so just retract that. I don't know where you got that from. And we do not advocate against affordable housing. We've been calling on reforms to 830G, just reforms. And we have a mission to empower local officials, and we believe that they are the best point to make decisions when it comes to permanent land use decisions. That's why I got involved. I'm very passionate about our environment and about land use. 830G is the law. We know that. I know that. I have approved 830G applications before. I have not approved some of them for various reasons. Some cases are in the majority, some cases they've been in the minority. I know it's a state law. I'm not biased, and I believe everybody deserves a fair treatment here. I understand that. When you have a commission that is made up of citizens, we're 7 commissioners. We all have different opinions. We come from different places in life. We have different, sometimes, interpretations of laws, but we're here to offer you, and your client a fair hearing, and I hope that you understand that. And I know that letter came from a good place. I know you have to act on behalf of your client, and I appreciate that. So I don't have any animosity. I just want to clear up the record with you.
And for the record, I appreciate what you said and I accept it, and
Okay,
I think we can move on.
great. Thank you.
We'll use the microphone just for everybody.
Pull it a little bit closer to you.
Yeah.
That would be sufficient. It's a little.
I would either put it up Commissioner Braun, what is your point of order?
Okay, so I'm going to ask that this commission request another extension based on the copious amounts of new material that has been filed since the application was originally filed in November. And I finally put it on a spreadsheet. So the application was revised in December. Actually, at our December hearing was the first night there was new material presented that day, December 3rd. The original application was filed in November. So the new material, there was all new material when we were here for our first hearing on December 3rd. Then there was another tranche of material filed on December 23rd, which is what the applicant's Attorney Hollister had promised us he would do. So we would have several weeks to review it. And around the same time, or at some point, he granted an extension to today to finish the public hearing and to have us vote, I think, by the 28th at our next regularly scheduled meeting. But then there was more supplemental material filed after the 23rd. There was, on January 13th, there was another 47-page response. So I guess I'm saying there are probably almost 1,000 pages of items here, or close to it, from the November application. When we met in December, it was already new material that night that we didn't have a chance to look at. And then we got more new material on the 23rd of December and more new material yesterday. So given our...
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, I would like to ask for another extension from the applicant to accommodate this.
Can we make that, I'll defer to you, I guess, for the request, but it seems prudent to maybe to see where we go with this hearing, see how far we are and where we are come maybe, I don't know, 9 o'clock-ish, before we make that kind of a formal request to see where we are. Or that would be my suggestion. Unless you would want me to ask the question now, but I'm gonna guess that he's gonna say, let's see how far we get today, and revisit it later this evening. Can we do that?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Thank you. It's a lot of people. Certainly, even if we make the request, we're doing work tonight. We have got too many other things going on to not do anything. Let's see where we go tonight. See how far we can. I would, just like last time, I appreciate the public's patience. As you've heard, we're very busy in December, November, and all the way back to September. So we've been busy, which is fine. Best way we can handle this, I think, is to be efficient in our time. Certainly, there have been some public input in mail and emails and volumes sent in. I have read most of them. I'm sure my commission either has or will, considering the time frame that came in. When we get to public comment, I'll have a little more comments, but if we can just be as efficient as we can, I think that will go a long way to making this a productive night. Attorney Hollister, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Good evening, town staff. Thank you and good evening. I guess I'd like to start with a procedural suggestion in the interest of efficiency. As was recounted, the application was filed in October, received in November. We made our presentation on December 3rd. We then had a long list of questions and comments, which we responded to as promised on the 23rd of December. And there has been some information that has come in. I would not characterize it as voluminous or even complicated, but what we're doing tonight is essentially presenting our December 23rd responses and our responses to a couple of items that have come in since December 23rd. If you would like, we would be happy to yield the floor at this point and let the public and the other consultants. So then we would have essentially one rebuttal.
I thought about that as well. Okay. I would think the best way maybe is to go through the 23rd materials, the landscaping, and the things that are somewhat new. It gives the public a chance to hear it. I don't know about you, sometimes I absorb things better when it's presented as opposed to reading it. I think that would be the way I would ask to go forward, just because that kind of
Okay.
follows a regular meeting. You're better.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to offer that.
No, I appreciate it. I thought about that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
The team tonight is our civil engineer is Avon Bauer from Casitas Engineering. In Fairfield, traffic consultant is Greg Del Rio from Hardesty and Hanover. And in New Haven, our landscape architect is Matt Pop from Environmental Land Solutions. The architects are Phil Cerrone and Will Capel from Cerrone Architects. And I am accompanied by my colleague, Andrew Morin. All right, so let me jump to the December 23rd responses. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to summarize the key points, and then I'll have each of the individual consultants come up and highlight more of the important detail of these items. So you have in front of you a hard copy of the December 23rd package with the site plan revision tucked inside. So you have that. And I suppose, Emmeline, if you could go to the first, or I should say the second slide from the deck that we gave you yesterday. Yeah, maybe start with the next one.
Is this all posted? I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure I could see.
This is all part of the public record, this presentation. Alistair or somebody.
Yes.
I don't see that. You can see the screen.
No, this has been posted to the record, right?
PowerPoint, I'm not sure about, but everything else, yes.
Well, everything you see on the PowerPoint is in the December 23rd.
Everything that you have in hard copy is posted.
And the PowerPoint will be posted at some point. Thank you.
Please do that. Submit the PowerPoint.
We have it. We just,
Oh, we have it.
They
Okay.
have it
I'm
from
sorry.
yesterday.
Obviously,
Yeah.
I have it.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Let me then summarize what we did submitted on December 23rd in response to the comments and questions that were sent our way on the 3rd of December. Number one is we have a landscaping plan, which is what is up on the screen. That Mr. Pop will explain it in a little more detail momentarily, but the point is we now believe we have screened the perimeter of the building where it's possible to do so from the adjacent homes through a series of trees and shrubbery. We have a revised photometric plan intended to make sure there is no glare off-site. We have cutoffs, and obviously there will be light visible as with any building, but we've eliminated any glare in the sense that the plan is dark sky compliant. You will see that we have a delivery truck turnaround diagram for the Soundview garage, which is, as we'll explain, which is to the place to which delivery vehicles will be directed. We have moved the electric vehicle chargers closer to the garage entrances, which was a request, a suggestion of the fire marshal. We have, it's visible on this plan in the upper right-hand portion above the building, we have moved the drainage system, the subsurface drainage system, further back from Tungus Hill Road on the west side of the building at the fire marshal's request to improve truck access. And by the way, as a side note, I believe it was yesterday, we got a further email from the fire marshal, who I believe his last name is Edmondson. I'm doing that from memory, but he said that he was he approved of that change and felt that it was a good improvement to the plan. As you'll hear from Mr. Bauer, the drainage system is now sized to handle the 500-year storm, which well exceeds the town's regulatory standard. But we made an attempt because there was a concern about that, and we have done that. We moved one parking space from the Soundview level garage to the Tungus level garage in order to have a clear area designated as a package delivery room. Bless you. There was questions last time about parking spaces. We have 55 parking spaces, and we've described in our materials a plan to assign a parking space to each residential unit. One space, whether we have 39 one-bedrooms and 7 two-bedrooms, so one space per unit. The handicap spaces will not be assigned. There will be 6 visitor spaces in the Soundview level garage which also will obviously not be assigned. We included in our December 23rd response a memo from Mr. Del Rio's firm that using ITE standards demonstrated the sufficiency of the 55 parking spaces for 46 units. And as he will explain to you, both residents and guests will be accommodated by the 55 spaces. And the sub result of that is we again believe that there will be no need for parking on Soundview as part of this building. Confirmed that the rooftop heat pumps at a distance of about 10 feet will meet state noise standards, but on top of that, we have now proposed rooftop noise attenuation screening that is in your materials, including a photographic representations of what the noise attenuation screens look like when they're actually installed on a building. There were questions about the trash pickup plan. We will limit the frequency to no more than 3 times a week, and Monday through Friday only from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. There was comment about how affordable housing, multifamily housing could devalue properties in the area. I will tell you there are literally dozens of studies that disprove that. We gave you a copy of one such study, a very highly professional one in a similar situation from Alexandria, Virginia, and it shows that the affordable multifamily component did not devalue neighboring single-family homes, and explains why that was not the case. We prepared illustrations of the existing structure-to-structure distances surrounding the proposed development, and then the separation distances between the proposed new building and the adjacent structures. And as Mr. Barrow will explain, all separations are consistent with or exceed existing setbacks, and they are generally consistent with the zoning regulations, both the neighborhood business and the residential zone, and not obviously a safety or health concern. There was a lot of comment last time about traffic safety conditions in the neighborhood, and we took the time to respond to that and basically pointing out respectfully, but it's part of our job, a contradiction between in the neighbor comments, and this is frankly something that comes up a lot with multifamily applications. But the basic theme was of the neighbor comments was that the existing conditions, traffic conditions in the neighborhood are unsafe. But what we pointed out in our response comment was, well, okay, apparently acceptable to the current residents. So we reaffirm our traffic engineer's proposal that there is no safety concern with our proposal, or really even in the existing neighborhood. There was a comment, a question last time about doing a pedestrian study between the new building and the McKinley School. And we pointed out it's approximately a half-mile walk from the subject property to the McKinley School. And if there is a pedestrian safety concern, it is an existing condition and not the applicant's responsibility. I gave you a copy of the 2021 Public Act passed by the legislature about pedestrian safety, which very clearly assigns that area of safety to the town's traffic authority and the responsibility to drivers to protect people in the appropriately placed crosswalks. So we just don't think that a pedestrian safety study focused on crosswalks between our building and McKinley School was the applicant's responsibility. In addition, it is a reality that the potential for school-age children in a mostly one-bedroom unit building is very low. But on top of that, the law of the state of Connecticut in any zoning application, not just affordable housing, is that the number of school-age children in a proposed building is never a proper criterion in a zoning application. So for all those reasons, we respectfully declined the pedestrian study request. Not to say that the town traffic authority cannot, even with the assistance of this commission, cannot delve further into that. We confirmed that the floor plan is ADA compliant in the sense that the units are adaptable. There was comment last time that the total building occupancy will be 92 people, which I assume comes from 46-2, not in a mostly one-bedroom building. Our estimate, and it's only an estimate, is approximately 60 total residents, and that is, I think, somewhat generous, assuming 2 people in all of the 2-bedroom units. So at that point, that is a summary of what we prepared for December 23rd. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to sit aside here and let Mr. Pop and Mr. Bauer and Mr. Del Rio address in more detail the items that I've summarized. So I'll start with Matt Pop.
And just to be clear to the experts coming up, obviously make the
Can you speak
presentation.
up, please?
Okay.
I can't hear you.
Excuse me. The experts coming up, please make the presentation you need to, but if we can be as efficient as we can, we'll talk about it, potential extensions later, but if we don't have an extension, then we're gonna stay all night to finish this hearing.
Good evening, Matthew Pop, landscape architect, professional wetland scientist from Environmental Land Solutions. We're in Norwalk. I was a 16-year member of the Greenwich Wetland Watercourses Commission. I'm on the Board of Parks and Rec in Greenwich, and I've been the wetland consultant for the city of Bridgeport for more than 30 years. I prepared the landscaping plan that we see up on the screen now. Generally, when I do a landscaping plan, I visit the site. I look at the adjacent properties. I also look at overhead utility lines and sidewalks and things like that, and grades. So when I do a landscape plan, the first thing I go to is I start with the street trees to see which trees we can get. So I do have a number of street trees. The larger circles are the shade trees. The shade trees are the bigger ones. They're oaks. So there's 3 on Tunxus Hill, and then there's 3 on Soundview. When you get on Soundview towards the top of the sheet, which is on the west side, there's 3 smaller circles. Those are Winter King hawthorns, and those are smaller because there's a underground drainage system near there. So I didn't want to propose the larger growing trees near adjacent to them. So after the street trees, I move on to the screening along the side property lines. And those are screened mainly with arborvitaes and a narrow growing juniper. There's a few American holly in there too, which is the kind of the bluish circle. And then after that, I move on to the foundation plantings. We try to keep it mainly evergreens, rhododendrons. There's some evergreen viburnums, inkberry. So that's the landscaping quick, and the rest would be a lawn area.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Avon Bauer. I'm a professional engineer with Cusitis Engineering out of Fairfield, Connecticut. And I just wanted to quickly go through some of the changes to our stormwater design. Per Commissioner Braun's comments at the last hearing, we did evaluate the system to be expanded for attenuation of a 500-year storm event. So now not only do we increase the stormwater the ability to detain stormwater on site where there is currently none on this property, we're now detaining beyond what the regulations of your town typically require us to do. We haven't received any feedback from Mecca Jane, but the original application, the plan, the impervious area has not changed, but the size of the system has increased, further attenuating, like I said, the 500-year storm event. The system, just for a little clarification, the system works by collecting the roof leaders and the available driveway that we're able to collect. It's directed into either the stormwater detention systems, the concrete galleys, or the ADS pipe network system, which is used to mitigate flow rate primarily. In the detention systems, the concrete galleries, the groundwater recharge is provided as much as we possibly can. And then the rate and volume of water is flowed out through a vortex system right before discharge into a catch basin. That vortex system is designed to provide water quality considerations and prevent any pollutants from getting into the town's Fairfield drainage system directly. This, as I mentioned, this complies with the typical 2 to 100 year storm events by the town of Fairfield standards, and we do attenuate up to that 500-year storm events. Because of the installation of these drainage systems, we are actually anticipating a decrease in overall flow rate and volume that's being directed off this property and into the town drainage system. And in my professional opinion, this development can be built without any adverse impacts to public health or safety. Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Braun.
From where I am remote, I can only see the landscaping plan. It doesn't show where the garage drainage goes into. Isn't there a requirement that that go into the sanitary sewer system?
That hasn't come up with DPW or building department, but if that were the case, we would be able to connect that in through our sanitary sewer connection.
And how could you show us the drainage plan, the most recent one that you have, as opposed to this? This doesn't have the detail in it.
I believe, Emmeline, would you be able to bring that up on our PDF?
I don't think you have it as, it's not gonna be in here. I gotta bring it up in the other one. Sorry.
Okay, if it's not part of this, we'll have to search for it quickly. Commissioner Braun, while Ms.
Well, I
Harrigan,
have some more questions about the drainage plan.
go ahead.
Okay, so I'm looking at, I read the stormwater manual and took the seminar during our break. So I have a few questions. I'm looking at a plan which is called the drainage plan, and it's prepared by Katsudis Engineering. And I think it's the new one where you moved the infiltrator from Tunks's Hill back a few feet. Can you explain, how does that, it doesn't seem like there's space for a fire truck to get in there. Where would the fire truck go? There's going to be trees planted there. Then you have the infiltrator. So how does that allow a fire truck to get in there? What, on the lawn, I guess, over the infiltrator?
So,
I thought it
yes,
was
that's
moved, so they
correct.
wouldn't have to do it. Yeah.
So the fire marshal was not requiring that we get a fire truck on there. He wanted as much space as possible to be able to pull his truck up should there need be an emergency. And I believe Phil Cerrone is going to discuss a little more of the fire marshal's concerns as we move through.
So the major changes to the drainage is that infiltrator was moved away from Tunks's Hill by 5 or 6, 8 feet, right? And could you show us on the plan, the drainage plan, the currently active one? Because I don't know which date, but I'm looking at one that has, it must be the December 23rd, I guess.
I believe there should be a revision though above the title block for December 23rd. Yes.
Okay, so that's the most recent drainage plan.
It's on the screen, correct?
Yes.
It's on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm trying to find it on the screen. Okay. Could you show us just with your cursor or whatever, what the changes are so we can identify them more easily between then and, you know, from what it was originally?
Yeah.
Where the water's going. Yeah.
As I mentioned, the overall scope really did not change all that much. All that happened was the ADS pipe system, which, Emmeline, if you don't mind, this section right here was expanded slightly in order to accommodate up to the 500-year storm event. We do attenuate the stormwater rate and volume for that storm event with the increase in size of the system. And then the other thing that she's bringing up is the first drainage system up here. That was shifted 8 feet to the left on your screen or south in order to accommodate the fire marshal's concerns, which he was satisfied with.
And so the water goes down from the roof into that first infiltrator system, which is basically boxes that hold water, and then it goes down the bottom into the soil, and it gradually fills up, and then it goes through the pipe if there's too much water and wraps around the building in those thick pipes. Is that the direction the water goes?
That's correct. Yes, it comes through. As much of the roof as we can pick up in each section will go into this system. It'll either be discharged directly into this system here, the ADS pipe system, or the further concrete galleries down below as well. And then before it discharges into the street system, it goes through this box here, which is called the Vortex Stormwater Quality Management System. And that's to ensure that we have water quality met before it discharges into the street system.
So the vortex is really like a centrifuge, right? It spins out the suspended solids, and then they go to the bottom of the can or whatever it is, and then eventually they have to maintain it and take the solids out, and then the water that's left over gets sent into the catch basin, which goes into, where does that go? Down the road somewhere? Does it get released into like Long Island Sound or the river or the wetland, or where does that go after that?
I don't know it's a terminal point, but I do know from here it goes across the street into an adjacent catch basin and then down to the east, down the hill, as you see on the bottom of your, towards the bottom of your screen, into another catch basin. From there, I'm not entirely sure where its discharge is.
And the water you're picking up is from the roof, and you said some of the driveway. Why not? And you're talking about, this is the driveway on Tunx's Hill. There's also a driveway on Sound View. Does that go a different direction into this system, or where does that water go that comes?
Yeah, so just because we don't have, because of the way the property lines are shaped, we aren't really able to pick up the driveway on the Tunx's Hill side. There's, if you see, there's a jog in the property line right through here that really we'd only be able to pick up maybe a couple of feet, which is generally negligible. We do have a slot drain, and by elevation, we can't get it into our drainage systems, but it does discharge into the vortex system to ensure the water quality is maintained.
So the driveway on the Tunx's Hillside does not go into this system. Where does it go?
It pitches back onto Tunx's Hill Road.
Okay. And the driveway on the Soundview side, does all that water get collected and go where? Directly into that little vortex system there?
Correct. Yes, directly into the vortex.
And that does not go into the infiltrator there?
No, everything is pitched to go down into the catch basin after the vortex. The vortex is the last stage before we discharge to the street system. It's so we can capture as much as we possibly can and treat the water quality before discharge.
And as far as expanding it, frankly, it's hard for me to tell. I'm not an engineer, but it seems like the pipes, they don't look any bigger. What got bigger to allow for a bigger storm?
So our design was always for the 2 to 100 year. And in order to accommodate that 500 year, just because of the way that the stormwater model was run, we were able to make just a 20-foot section longer. That's right over here, Emmeline. And with that additional 20 feet, it was able to detain enough volume back to discharge at an appropriate rate to meet both rate and volume.
Now, the infiltrators don't treat the water, right? So any sort of dissolved toxins or phosphorus, nitrogen, whatever is in there, that doesn't get treated. That it just flows straight into the earth below the infiltrator, right? Whatever can be accommodated. And if the infiltrator fills up, it continues on through the pipe system, right?
That's correct. But the infiltrators themselves do not provide any groundwater recharge. But what happens is the water that gets put into those infiltrators does infiltrate into the ground. That's where the groundwater recharge comes in.
Right. But it's not really being treated. The vortex is at the end of the system, not at the beginning, right?
Make notes.
Yeah, the vortex is at the end of the system by design to ensure that anything that does not get infiltrated into the soils for groundwater recharge and water quality is picked up by that vortex. It's basically a fail-safe to ensure water quality prior to discharge to the system.
But the vortex does not really treat dissolved solvents, I'm assuming.
It doesn't treat, it separates them, and with proper maintenance, they are removed and disposed of properly.
But it doesn't treat dissolved chemicals, correct?
I'm not 100% sure exactly what it treats, but I do know that it's in this Connecticut Stormwater Manual is one of the options to use for stormwater quality.
So getting back to the stormwater manual, it said you have to do a test pit beneath every infiltrator. I see a test pit on the left-hand infiltrator system, those 12 little boxes up on the left, but I don't see one under the one off Tunx's Hill. Did you do a test pit there? It's not shown on the plan.
Yes, so if you can see, Emmeline, there's a test pit that was conducted in the front yard here. And I agree with you, and if it would be amenable to the commission, we would be happy to have a condition of approval that a test pit be conducted in that region. The reason there wasn't one conducted is there's currently a residence there, and all the utility lines are run through that region. So we couldn't viably dig there without hitting some sort of utility.
So the purpose for the test pit, my understanding is to see what the level of groundwater is, correct?
Groundwater or restrictive layer in the soils, yes.
And so modeling is something that does show up in one of your test pits. In your test pits, it shows modeling at a certain level. I think it said between 20 and 22 inches below grade. So modeling is a sign of seasonal high water because that changes the sort of chemistry of the soil.
It doesn't change the chemistry, and it's not necessarily always seasonal high groundwater. These models are most likely due to a compaction in the soil, which based on the nearest test pit data that we were able to dig, that's how we designed that infiltration system to be as high above that restrictive layer, as it's called, as we can be.
Yeah, so this has come up in a few of our other applications where the bottom of the infiltrator system is supposed to be 36 inches, which is 3 feet above the modeling or any sign of seasonal high water. But on your plans, according to my calculation, it's less than a foot distance between the modeling. If you look at the elevation of the bottom of the infiltrators, there's notations on these plans. It's only like less than a foot above the level, at least of the test pit on the left-hand infiltrator where Soundview is. There is no test pit for the Tunx's Hill infiltrator, but it seems like the Soundview one is very close to where the modeling appears, like less than a foot.
So the typical standard is 1 foot above the modeling, which is what I believe we designed to. There was a small transgression. It's something that we could certainly revise as part of a condition of approval at the permit level. These are things that Megha Jane would have looked at, and she was okay with the infiltration system.
Well,
Those systems
Megha Jane
did not
said
change.
she had no comments, so I don't know what she looked at or what her comments were, but I'm looking at page 187 of the stormwater manual. It says the bottom of the infiltration system should be located at least 3 feet above seasonal high groundwater. And it also says that inadequate vertical separation distance between the infiltration system and the seasonal high groundwater can result in insufficient pollutant removal in the unsaturated zone below the system and concerns over localized groundwater contamination, as well as reduced hydraulic performance of the system due to groundwater mounding. And somewhere else in here, I know it said that you're supposed to do a test pit below every infiltrator system. So I guess my question is, A, it seems as though there's not enough vertical distance, and B, it seems as though we don't have a test pit on the first of the infiltrator systems. So how can you be sure that that will even work, that it will properly absorb the water coming through the system for any level of storm event?
So as I mentioned, the standard in the town of Fairfield is typically 1 foot above the modeling, which I believe we have maintained. But as far as its ability to detain stormwater, it is certainly capable, and I understand that there's no test pit in that area. But as I said, it's something we did to the best of our ability. We'd like a test pit as close as we can, and it's simply just not feasible to dig there. And as I said, we've done this on other applications where it would be a condition of approval at the permit stage to dig a test pit in the area of that infiltration system for verification, and then make any minor plan modifications as necessary.
That would be a pretty major modification if you have inadequate capacity. There's something else moving on. The stormwater manual also requires that an infiltration test be done where the infiltrators are. And that's a different measure. That measures how fast, I guess, the water can go down vertically below the infiltration system into the soils. And there's no sign of that being done, although the map somewhere it indicates somewhere in the materials that a percolation test was done, but that's not considered current best management practices, whereas the infiltrator test is, but it doesn't indicate where that was done, and I don't see it on the plan. Maybe you could point that out.
Sure, I apologize if it's not on the plan, but the percolation test was done right about here, right where the Soundview system is proposed. And I'm not entirely sure what other tests you are referring to in the stormwater manual, because in the town of Fairfield accepts a percolation test to be satisfactory to determine if water will percolate through those soils.
I'm assuming the town of Fairfield follows the stormwater manual of the DEP, but certainly that would be best practices on a site that's increasing to be, I don't know, 69% impervious surface. And then when I re-listened to the hearing last time, I had asked a question about catch basins. There's only one catch basin that this is all draining into on Soundview. Is anything draining into a catch basin on Tunx's Hill Road?
No, we are not connecting into the Tunx's Hill catch basin directly. The little bit that will be draining is the lawn area that's slightly pitched that way, and the slight amount of driveway for the Tunx's Hill garage.
By lawn, you mean the lawn between the building and Tunx's Hill Road?
Correct.
And you've put some swales in on the bottom part of the house
Hold on
where
one
the,
second. Hold on one second. Attorney Hollister.
Mr. Brown, this is Tim Hollister. I just want to ask, can you approximately tell us how long your questions are? Because I am worried about the chairman's admonition that we should move our presentation along. I mean, you have a right to ask questions all night, but I'd like to get through our initial presentation and then we can come back and look at the details, if that is acceptable.
okay, I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
We get to ask a lot of questions. We'll get some time in because these guys.
Sir, I said next. Thank you.
Greg Del Rio, professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, director of traffic engineering for Hardison Hanover. We conducted the traffic study for this development.
Everybody, you're okay?
I can't hear him. I'm next to him.
No.
Going?
Can you just put it up a little close? Yeah, it's
All right.
very sensitive. I know.
Yeah, it's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna begin with the parking space plan. There were questions about the parking spaces. So a total of 55 spaces are being provided. And the plan is to assign one space per dwelling unit. So that's and then 30, so that's 46 units, 46 spaces of the 55. 35 of those will be from the Tungus Hill. So all of the spaces on the Tungus Hill side are reserved for unit spaces. On the Soundview side, there will be 11 more for the residents, for the units. And that leaves 6 spaces for guests, plus the 3 ADA spaces for whoever needs them, guests or tenants. So that's the basic plan, and there'll be signs directing tenants and visitors to Soundview when necessary. That's the parking space plan. So how do we accommodate that? Yep. Then there were questions about access for the deliveries. So we provided the turning movements showing that the Sprinter vans, which is the typical delivery vehicle, can make the turns and the movements inside the garage from the Soundview access. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other issues with this, but that was what the question was, do they have room to move around and get in and out so that there's, no backing up onto Soundview. So that's what this illustration shows.
Next slide, please.
Commissioner Braun, a question on.
Yeah, quick question on the turnaround. If you could bring that picture back. On the 3-point turn.
Thank you, Ms. Harrigan. Go ahead.
So that 3-point turn is to allow like an Amazon delivery truck to go in, go left, back up, and go out again and drop the packages off on the package room, which is right there. So they would have to park there, bring the packages in.
Correct.
And is it blocking anyone when it stops there to put packages in the package room?
There is still width within the drive aisle to go around the vehicle.
Yeah. When you look at the purple line is the center of the vehicle. The green lines are the width of the vehicle, right?
It's, yes, showing the overhang of the bumpers, correct.
It seems as though when he tries, it's very tight. It seems as though when he makes that left at the first leg of the 3-point turn, he's crossing into the exit lane. So if somebody is trying to exit, it seems like there's going to be an impact.
Well, we're showing it to the middle. They certainly can go around, and that's a temporary condition. That's in any parking lot. So
it seems a little tight to me. And do you know what the normal practices of Amazon and other types of delivery trucks come from? What I hear, they don't even go in the garage. They just block traffic. Are you even aware that they would use the garage? Like, how do you enforce that?
Well, we're just showing that if they do, they're accommodated.
And if they don't use the garage, where would they normally park? Are you aware of their habits, the normal way of doing things?
Would depend on that provider.
Okay, you haven't done the research, you don't know. And now the three
I'm not going to
EVs,
speculate on how they will act in
Gonna
this
park on the
neighborhood.
street is what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, please,
Yeah.
we're trying to get
Let's,
through this here.
let's be aware that this is not an additional trip. This is an additional stop. It's the same vehicle making the deliveries to the rest of the neighborhood. It's not an extra vehicle, right? It's the same. So if they stop in the street for somebody else, they'll probably run in here. If there's no other stops, maybe they'll pull into the building. That's just speculation.
Sir, please.
okay. And then the three EVs, could you point out where they are now? On this is one, they're two separate parking garages, obviously, so you can't connect the two.
Separate, I think we have a
We'll get to
separate
that.
slide coming up showing the EV parking.
Okay, I'll hold off on my question.
Go
Okay.
ahead. Thank you.
There was the calculation, there was a question about, will there be enough spaces? So we broke it down by units. So the affordable units are broken down by the 16 bedrooms. And that ratio results in a demand of 13 spaces, peak demand. Similarly, for the 1-bedroom units and the 2-bedroom units, so 27 dwelling units are 1 bedroom, and that results in a demand of 34 spaces. And then the 2-bedroom units, there's 5 of those, and that results in 8 and a total of 55 total spaces at peak demand. That's how we come with the demand number.
Thank you.
I think that's it for the traffic.
Commissioner Randolph.
Mr. Del Rio, did you prepare the traffic impact analysis?
Yes.
And what standards do you use to prepare a traffic impact analysis?
As far as trip generation is
So just the overall framework and the issues included in the TIA.
Yeah, they are standard methodologies for, the state of Connecticut for development.
So you comply with the CT dot
Absolutely.
highway safety manual?
Correct, yes.
And the CT dot highway safety manual, as you're aware, includes requirement to evaluate pedestrian and traffic safety.
Yes.
But in your professional opinion, actually, Mr. Hollister said that there was admitted that there is an existing dangerous condition here. Is that correct?
Well, that's not what I said.
Oh, I'm sorry. You quoted the audience saying that there was an existing dangerous condition here for pedestrians, for school children walking. Is that correct?
There were a public comment last time that there are dangerous traffic conditions in the neighborhood. I don't remember whether they said specifically pedestrians, but several neighbors said that our neighborhood has dangerous traffic conditions. They did say that.
So I relatively certain I heard you say earlier, because my concern is over school children walking to McKinley School. And you earlier said that this is the existing dangerous condition. It's not the responsibility of this applicant to address.
No, sir, I did not say that there is a dangerous condition walking from the proposed building to McKinley School. You asked for a pedestrian safety study, and we said, for the reasons I articulated, that we don't think that's necessary, particularly because the state of Connecticut very clearly 4 years ago assigned pedestrian safety to the town's traffic authority, plus the fact that we're only going to have a very small number of school-age children, if any, in the building, and plus it's not a relevant criteria in zoning.
So I'm sorry, I'm confused. Did you make the judgment, or did Mr. Del Rio make the judgment on what was included in the TIA as determined by the state of Connecticut?
I'm not familiar with the term TIA, but
Traffic, so clearly Mr. Del
Traffic
Rio did,
impact
since you don't know what a traffic impact analysis, which is a standard terminology for what Mr. Del Rio prepared.
The conclusion that I articulated to you was from our team, including Mr. Del Rio, including me, whose responsibility is it to map out pedestrian safety over a half-mile walk from the proposed building to the McKinley School.
So on page 127 of your document, you show the walking path of students going from, if you're familiar with that path that you showed in your supplemental drawings, you're familiar with that, what was shown in there?
So the
walking path. shown in the
We,
supplemental.
we gave an aerial photograph measuring the distance.
Aerial photograph that but it indicated that was a walking path.
It's a walking distance.
So the walking distance went through the backyards of other
No, it
houses.
was along Tungus Hill Road.
It wasn't along Tungus Hill Road, it was through the backyards. But I guess my point is, the state of Connecticut, and the,
Commissioner. That's what I'm referring.
yes, that one right there. Look at where the path is,
Okay.
the backyards.
It's a blue line intended to track.
Right, but you're measuring a distance through a backyard, showing that as a walking path. So I guess my point is that
Private property.
It's our place.
Everybody has a
We're
It's
right.
our
not-
place. Yes, you
we're
will,
not
but right now it's
advocating
his
that
time.
school children walk through backyards. The intent was to measure the distance of walking from our proposed building to McKinley School.
So I guess my request is that this application be complete and evaluate the impact, if any, because we don't know, because we didn't study it, on pedestrian safety between this location, and I'm not talking about the children generated from this location, but the existing conditions, and if there are additional cars parked on the street, whether that would exacerbate an already dangerous existing condition. And which is what the nature of my question was last time, but your response was we didn't need to study it, which is rather disappointing. So I guess my question is, Mr. Del Rio, why did you all decide to exclude a pedestrian evaluation of school children walking to McKinley?
Well, let me start by saying we did do a safety analysis in the traffic study, and there is a section in there. And there were 0 accidents in the last 3 years on Soundview reported. 0. That's both car to car, car to pedestrian, car to bicycle. So you can't even ratio and prorate it up, right? If there was 1, you could say they double. But the answer is 0.
So I appreciate.
And I think there were 0 pedestrian crashes. I don't know this for sure. I do know that on Soundview. I would have to look at the report to see if there were any pedestrian or bicycle accidents on Tungus Hill, on between our block and the 2 intersections. I believe the answer is 0, but I would have to check. So I don't want to talk out of line.
It's fairly technical in this area more, but just intuitively, if additional cars are parked on Soundview, which is possibly the case, I think that the parking ratio is good, but there is a likelihood of additional cars being parked.
The likelihood
Let him
is,
finish the
that's
question.
speculative.
Hold on. Let him finish the question.
If there are additional cars, which is possible, did you all study whether that would exacerbate an already dangerous condition for school children walking to school? That's just my concern. School children walking to school is my concern.
I understand your concern. This street is the same dimensions and same demands as the whole neighborhood, and I don't know what the neighborhood is experiencing, but have you gotten complaints that's no in the area? Yeah, and we have crashes. I understand on this road.
Not crashes, a dangerous.
Yeah, well, that's the data, right? Likelihood. I mean, it is or it isn't.
Listen, can I just jump in? I know Commissioner Randolph, you made that request last time. You reiterated it here. I think they've reiterated their response twice that they don't feel that they need to do it for their own, reasons. So I'm not sure what more is to be gained by that.
Sure. I guess just to conclude, it sounds like your analysis is incomplete.
I would disagree.
I would disagree also. And I would also point out, Commissioner Randolph, if there was a school-age child living in the proposed building, there's no reason that they would walk on Soundview. They would walk out the front door onto Tungus. They don't have to walk on Soundview.
I'm sorry, but I'm not being clear in my question. It's not school-age children in the building. It's exacerbating an already dangerous situation by additional of sound. That's my concern.
Well, we don't have a dangerous condition. We have no evidence that we're going to have additional parked cars on any street between the proposed building and McKinley School. So, and it's not our responsibility by a matter of state law. I don't know what else I can say.
Mr. Hollister, I think by you making that statement, it undermines your credibility because anybody who's walked on that street would know that it's already a dangerous place. So I've made my point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Mayor Harrison, then Ron.
Just for the record, just to Mr. Randolph, thank you for saying that. I would just add, there is another school in the vicinity. McKinley School, there is, school age kids do go there too. I believe some of them do walk. So there are not only that school, but there's also McKinley School too. Thank you.
Ron.
I had asked a question at our first hearing about the accident reports, because the accident report history was gotten from the state, which collects information, but that ended a year ago. And when the supplemental response was given, it didn't really answer that. Do you have actually updated accident history for the current year of 2024, or did it really end a year ago? Can you point it out to me? I haven't been able to find it in the 1,000 pages of material. Or you don't have to answer it right this minute, but if you could get us the answer, I'd appreciate it.
It's always at the time of the study, we look back at the available data. So,
so the town of Fairfield has its own records, right?
I believe we contacted and we did not have any extra, but I would have to check on that for that same period.
Please confirm that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Philip Cerrone. I'm an architect here in Fairfield. My office is at 421 Meadow Street, Fairfield. Just going to try to make this quick and then I can answer any questions. The question came about the EV charging locations. We did submit a drawing that shows that these have been moved to near the entrances on both Soundview and on Tungus Hill. Excuse me. Slide 6. So you can see there, so this is on the Soundview side, they're the first 3 on the right-hand side of the building as you drive in. And then on the Tungus, the next slide, please, second. On the Tungus, same thing. There are 2 on the left and 1 on the right as you drive in from the street. I believe Attorney Hollister mentioned there's a letter on file from the fire marshal that he's reviewed this and that's acceptable to him. Also want to reiterate that per state law, we're not actually installing the chargers. We're just installing the infrastructure for them at this point. They may or may not be installed at some time in the future. And both levels of the garage are completely sprinklered with a fire suppression system. So if there was a fire there, hopefully it would help contain it. Moving on to rooftop utilities and sound attenuation of those. We can talk about the lighting being that you put that up instead. That's fine. So that's good. Yeah. We did submit a photometric plan of the lighting on both levels of the garage, as well as the few light fixtures that we have mounted at the exterior doors of the building. If you look at this, you'll see the foot candle levels at the property lines on the left side and the right side of the building are essentially 0, which means we're getting no light bleed from our building to the properties on either side of us. There is some light where the doors are, obviously on the street sides of the building, because that's required by code. As far as the noise attenuation on the roof, we do have, we submitted documentation of the decibel rating for the HVAC units on the roof, which was 54 at approximately 10 feet from the unit. That's without any sound attenuation, any screening, or any baffles around it. We've added, and this documented in the materials we submitted, we've added screening around all the HVAC units on the roof that will really contain the noise and, if anything, deflect it upward. So we don't see that as being an issue at all as far as noise generating to the adjacent neighbors. All of our sound is well within the limits of DEP standards. We went over this photometric plan. I think that's pretty much everything that on our plans. And in my professional opinion, this building can be built and is designed and can be occupied without any health or safety concerns.
One more topic, which is Mr. Bauer on building setbacks and that.
Commissioner Braun, you had questions on the EV?
Well, actually, now he answered the question on the EV.
Okay.
On the lighting, the roof lighting plan, it looked like it was a roof plan and a lighting plan. The lights are not on top of the roof. This looks like
Correct.
It's a roof plan,
There's
right?
no lighting on the roof. That plan that you're looking at is the parking level plan.
Oh,
The
where's
two-
the roof plan that shows all those sound silencing things for all the HVAC? That looks
It's
like a
in the
light plan.
package that was handed out. It's not in the PowerPoint.
Well, what are these? Oh, so this is a garage right here.
It's a tab 10B. Oh,
Okay.
Tab 8 of the December 26th, December 23rd.
Could you just explain how the sound silencing devices work? You have 46 HVAC units on top of the roof. The roof itself is on the Soundview side is 50 feet high above ground level, and each of these HVACs extend 4 to 5 feet above the roof.
They're probably 3 to 4 feet. I don't think they're any higher than that really, but the screens would be at least as high as whatever the highest unit is, the screens would be. They're grouped into groups, and then the screening would isolate go around all of those units. And let me note that even without the screening, the sound decibel rating of these units is well within DEP standards. And dare I say, well below the noise in the neighborhood, especially the car wash across the street.
Okay, thank you.
Question. Are the lights full cut off?
The lights, so the lights inside the garage aren't full cutoff, but they're all directed down, and we've dropped the soffits on all the openings that'll shield them so that there will be no light bleed out there. The lights that are on the outside of the building are all night sky compliant and full cutoff, so those will only night sky compliant. For anybody who's not familiar, this means the light shines down; it doesn't shine up to the stars.
Mr. Bauer?
Hold on, Commissioner Collins.
Yeah, for the fire suppression system that you're using for the garage where the EV,
Yes, sir.
is it the type that puts out for lithium ion batteries, or is it just? a
So
basic-
there's no type per se right now. It's still been, every fire marshal still recommends that you just use a water system. There's a lot of analysis being done on that. And we've met with the fire marshal twice. He's at this point just accepted the basic fire water suppression system. If he requires it, we would add extra heads in that area. But otherwise, and they would fight the fire. We've located these so they could actually fight the fire from outside the building or from the garage door opening.
Because my little bit of research I've done, it's called an F500 encapsulator agent.
Mhm.
Which is different from the water.
Right. This is specified as a water system.
David,
Thank you.
next slide, please.
Attorney Hollister, nearly there.
The last.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Avon Bauer with Cusidis Engineering. I just wanted to go over very briefly the general vicinity of the neighborhood and how this structure should kind of fit in with everything. So the schematic that you see in front of you depicts from the GIS mapping system as close as we can get it without an actual survey, the distances between the buildings throughout the neighborhood. So you see that they range anywhere from 11 feet to 25 feet, give or take. And if you were to go to the next slide, please. This is a general overlay of our building in relation to where it would sit on our property and in relation to the neighboring structures. So you see that in most cases, we are approximately 30 to 40 feet from all the buildings. On the bottom left-hand corner, I believe that is 19 feet and 13 feet on the top right-hand corner. All of this is consistent with the general kind of scope of the neighborhood where the buildings are approximately that distance to each other. And
To be clear, not to the property line, but building to building.
building to building, yes, yeah. From the property line, we do have approximately the same distances as well. As you can see, based on the GIS, the red lines that you see kind of coming through here are the property lines, and many of the buildings are very close to being right up against the property line. Thank you.
Okay, we will stop there, and I will say all we have left to present is responses to what was received yesterday and today by Mr. Nguyen.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of at least their, I guess, initial rebuttal. As I said, we will be turning back to public comment to discuss the new items received December 23rd onward. Again, I'd ask not to be repetitive of things that we've already discussed. There are certainly topics that we know and we understand. We understand new materials have been provided, and it's the public's time now to address those new materials. I'd ask again if you keep it to the new materials only, as you can, please. Ma'am, and then sir. Are you not interested?
I
Okay.
was having trouble hearing you.
Oh, sorry.
But I do have a question, but it is not that important.
Got it. Ma'am, and then I know you want to go, sir.
I'd like to ask a lot of questions here.
Okay, ma'am first.
Excuse me.
Oops.
I apologize.
Good evening, committee. My name is Hannah Gale. I live at 234 Soundview Avenue. So I have two things that were brought up this evening that were concerning. First of all, I remember at the initial meeting, there was a request to see if the garbage could only be picked up on the Tungus Hill side because of what a disturbance that would be to the neighborhood on the Soundview side, and that was not addressed at all. And so I'd like for that to be addressed and as to why the garbage cannot be exclusively on the Tungus Hill side where it would be more appropriate and less disturbing. And then I just wanted to speak to the most recent testimony about the fire issue. We did meet with the fire assistant fire marshal. I'm not sure what his title was, but in our neighborhood, and he informed us that absolutely the fire department would have to go up into the garage in order to deal with anything, that they could not fight any fire whatsoever from outside. And yet you keep saying that you're expecting them to fight a fire from outside, and that's just simply not what the fire department told us. This is an increasing concern because we are in a high wind area. We've all just seen what happens in a high wind area when, there's a lot of units that are very close together. And so this is really concerning to me. I really don't want to have your building start a fire that then whips through our neighborhood when we have 80 mile an hour winds and it winds up, at my house. So I'd really like to, for you to, for there to be not a difference between what you're saying about fighting a fire standing outside and what the fire department told us. Thank you.
That's something we can reach out to the fire department.
I have so many questions for these guys. I'll probably be here till next month.
Heard we will be.
We'll make friends. James, 111 Soundview Avenue. I'd like to really start here by saying, when I came here in December, there was no handouts given.
Just have you.
I know I have a big mouth. I'll just, no problem. 111 Soundview, Ken James. 111 Soundview, Ken James. When I came here in December, there was no handouts given to anyone here. So how could you possibly ask questions? That's what I would like to ask the board. No handouts. Now, I want to go to the beginning about encroachment, which is illegal in encumbrance. Now, when we build this building, that's going to be a monstrosity, over 50 feet high, another 6 feet for air conditioning and heat pumps. We're going to encumbrance and encroach on the people's property behind. The lady who lived in this area for 60 years, over 60 years, I talked to Mr. Nguyen. He said to me, I'm very concerned about her not getting light and also mold issues. And also the fellow who lives on Soundview side, he's also a candidate for the same type of situation. Now, the attorney says here that once we build this building, we're going to have increased value to the properties. Now, how can that be when the fellow on Soundview had his house sold It was in a matter of days of closing it. And he's just putting it on the market today, only 6 hours ago, and reduced the price. He had that house sold and he was in closing. He had a down payment and he only has 3 days from closing. Now, I spoke to the realtor at that time on that next Saturday after this meeting. The woman who was representing the buyer said to me, how can I possibly market these properties when I don't even know what's going to happen? And when this monstrosity is going to go up over 60 feet high. Come on. Now let's go over this encumbrance and encroachment. This is totally illegal. It's also a violation of federal law. Now we have also here a toxic fume issue here. They're going to put on there. I've been in this business for renovation my whole life, since I've been 4 years old. Now, my father was in roofing for years and years, for over 40 years. They're going to put a membrane on there, a petroleum membrane, because it's a flat roof. That gives off all kinds of toxic fumes. And there's no doubt about it. You even have to sign a disclosure statement by the companies who give you the chemicals that you won't sue them for cancer. DuPont puts them out. Now let's go over this part of it. Local zoning boards have the power to regulate the size of lots and heights of buildings in their towns. This is under a Supreme Court ruling in 1926. Now, this Supreme Court ruling was done by who? It was done by the two most famous Supreme Court justices of all time, Wendell Holmes and also Benjamin Cardozo. So yes, the state cannot impose an 830G and go against federal constitutional ruling. It cannot be done. Now let's go further over here.
Sir, if I can, please.
I just want to make sure everybody hears me, especially the board.
We hear you, sir.
So that's
Sir,
very good,
sir.
because I'm a little bit older. Maybe I'm a little bit.
All right, sir, can I just say, I mean, again, this rebuttal is supposed to be limited to the new materials.
Well, it's a Freedom of Information Act. I can take all year here for as long as I want.
Or you're not, again.
No, that's exactly. But it's freedom of information. This is open forum. Everybody has a right to express their views. This is what an open forum is. This is still the United States. We still have a constitution. I believe we still do, don't we? We still have a constitution?
Yes, sir. I'm just
Very
pointing out.
good, very good, because we
I'm
do have a
just
federal
pointing out that you
constitution.
had this opportunity last time.
Okay, so let me go further. Now, let me go further. It's very important here. Now, I think that the lawyer would agree, because I think he made a very important point here. That the distance of the place between where the builder is here, Mr. Rangel, or what his name is, I measured this myself. Since I've been 4 years old, I could use a ruler. 4 years old, I could use a ruler. Now, if you take Mr. Vangel's property and you go across the street, it's 25 feet. 25 feet. I invite all the board members to come with me. We could all have all these people, and we all measure it with a ruler.
Can everybody just speak their 2 minutes and then you can go up if there's time at the end?
Oh, sure. But let me just make this one other point. This one other quick point. One other quick point.
We were just gonna do 2 minutes per person.
All right, well, let me just make one more point, and then you can say what you want. All right, I measured it as 25 feet from Mr. Vangel's property. Okay, I talked to the police department. You have 1 foot on each curb. You're allowed. That's 2 feet. I talked to Ford, and Mr. Vangel has a Ford F-250. Each Ford is 9 feet wide, so that's 9 feet additional. So you have two sides of the curb. So, okay, so now we're down to what? Now we're down to a 5 feet left measurement, okay? 5 feet left. Now I talked to the fire department twice. They told me that their fire trucks are 11 feet wide. Now we're 6 feet over. Fire trucks can't get in. Neither can the ambulances get in. Neither can the police department get in. Their SUVs can't get in when they're all called in. Impossible. So what do we have? We have a problem, but we have a major problem of health and safety. No doubt about it. And then I talked to the fire department, and they also told me it's not just the fact of the width of our trucks, but we need another 10 feet to turn around. So now look, we're over 16 feet. The fire trucks can't get in. How can this project even be considered in these circumstances? It should have never been considered even. There's no way around it. It's a public major safety issue and a major concern of everybody here. All right, thank you. I'll let everybody else speak. I have other pictures to show. Thank you.
Forming, is that correct? Come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is David Ginter, professional engineer from Redness and Mead. I've been retained by some neighbors to review the drainage report and the site plans that were submitted at the end of December for technical compliance. Earlier today, I believe a letter that I had written was submitted on the record.
Are you able to say who you were retained by?
Carlo Rivecchio, I believe.
Pretty good.
Thank you.
And your address again, sir?
Yep.
Thank you. 101 Soundview.
Yep. So the letter is a pretty comprehensive review that I did of the site plans and drainage report. A lot of this is technical in nature, and can be worked out honestly through conditions of approval and prior to building permit. There's a few points that I made at the beginning of this letter that I want to just go over quickly now that I do think are not things that can be addressed should the commission close the hearing and make a decision. I believe that this should be left open for review of some of these items. First, there is a requirement, as I understand it, as we've had to deal with on projects here in town before, where a minimum amount of volume of storage is to be provided in a 25-year storm as it relates to the amount of impervious coverage. I calculate that as 6,000 roughly cubic feet of storage and infiltration that's required. I don't believe that this application provides that in the current configuration that is proposed. If you scroll through some of the comments I have, and I'll get into a few more here, and some of my recommendations or questions on the study and some of the calculations are taken into account, I don't believe that the drainage report peak flows and volumes currently are being reduced in all storm events as has been stated today, whether it's the 1-year storm, the 100-year storm, 500-year storm. I do believe that there will be, without modifications to the site plan, issues with meeting that requirement.
Can you give us some more as to that?
Certainly, that'll be the rest of my conversation.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yep. So one piece of it, as I believe one of the commission members stated before, that there is some concerns with test pits and elevations of these infiltration systems as it relates to observed groundwater, whether it's actual groundwater or mottling. I agree that I believe some of these systems are set either at or just above restrictive layers and not the minimum 1 foot that is the design standard that is to be met. I also don't believe that some of the calculations included all the storage correctly. I think there was a slight overestimation of storage provided in these systems as shown in the drawings versus what's in the report. I think the report overestimates some of those calculations, some of the storage. The system that is located on fronting on Soundview, there's a question in my mind, is it elevated too high and will it physically fit on the property? If I'm reading the plans correctly, the elevation at the top of that system is above the entrance to the sprinkler room that is located right there, and there's a sidewalk that's out front. So either you're not getting access to the sprinkler room or that system has to be lowered. So there'll be a question as to how much storage can be provided within that system itself. Within the ADS system, the tight system, where no infiltration is able to occur because it's a tight pipe, normally the systems are designed with low flow outflows, meaning the lowest point of that storage, water can freely flow out. It's there to detain, not infiltrate. Those systems have been designed with high overflows that are part way up that storage. So water will always sit at that elevation at the lowest point of overflow. The drainage model that I reviewed appears to take into account that extra storage in that system that I don't think actually will be there after the first rain event. So again, I think it's an overestimation of the amount of storage that is available out there. The other pieces to this are the elevation of the connection into the catch basin in Soundview Avenue itself. There is no elevation listed for the outlet pipes from that catch basin. Based on the plans, they're estimating that the inverts coming into that system need to be set 6 feet below grade. I don't know of many catch basins that are in the street, none that I've ever seen, none that I've ever designed, have an invert that are that low. I think that it needs to be reviewed. What is the connection point into that catch basin to see if the system can actually overflow as intended into that, or would there be alternate overflows that would be required? I think that the connection into the catch basin needs to be analyzed a little further as well, not from an elevation standpoint, connection standpoint. But the way that the drainage model appears to have been run is that all of the water leaving this property was not viewed as what's going to Tungus Hill or what's going to Soundview, was just studied as one site in general. Based on my quick review, about 40% of the site under existing conditions goes to that catch basin in Soundview, whereas 65% of the site is tributary to it under proposed conditions. So there's more site area that's getting to that catch basin at the end of the day if this was to go forward. Do I think that's a problem at the end of the day? No, I think there's ways it could work. But I think an analysis needs to be done to prove that there's no increase in runoff going to that site specific point, so that the capacity of that conveyance system in that catch basin is not overtaxed or causing other issues. I do think, I've made the recommendation, given the tight areas that this infiltration system and tight pipe systems can go, the tight systems I think are inaccurately shown widthwise on the plan. I think that the system itself would be basically built from property line to building face. And there's some concerns I have with that, about the ability to actually construct it in the field. The question and something to consider would be, is it possible to have this system be designed so that it's underneath the garage level of the Tungus Hill entrance, where it appears that that whole system is, or that whole garage slab is going to be filled. You can get a bigger footprint in there to achieve the ultimate goal of reducing peak rates of runoff as well as volumes, and have it over a larger footprint. I think that given the high groundwater levels and the soil restrictions that I see in the test pits and the percolation rate, which was a fairly low percolation rate, there should be a factor of safety applied to the exfiltration, which is the amount of water that can leave from these infiltration systems during a storm event. In municipalities that we work in, we see a factor of safety of anywhere from 1.5 to 2 be applied, which would impact and limit the amount of water that's able to infiltrate into the ground, which would require more, or would mean more overflow leaving the property, which I think is going to alter their calculations, their ultimate results there. There's also some questions about groundwater. The Soundview Ave garage area is getting cut significantly in one corner, 9 feet or so of cut into groundwater areas. There doesn't appear to be any recommendation for how to handle groundwater, both during construction and or post-construction. Is there going to be a footing drain? Should there be some account for groundwater factored into these drainage calculations that may alter these calculations? And then, some concerns about construction phasing. It's basically a building that's getting, for lack of a better term here, built property line to property line. There's not a lot of free space around the property. Construction access, where contractors going to be parking, groundwater dewatering during construction, how is that going to be treated? Again, some of these are some technical things, but I think things that need to be considered and again, from our standpoint, would typically be shown on plans as part of an application.
Mr. Ginter?
Yes, sir.
Can you just go through quickly? I see you're a licensed engineer, right?
That is correct.
Can you just give me a little of your background, education, experience?
Certainly. University of Connecticut graduate 20 years ago. I've been working at Redness and Mead since 2004. I am a principal and senior engineer. I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut and New York. I'm also a certified floodplain manager. We have been working, I have been specifically working in Lower Fairfield County, since I started at Redness and Mead, primarily on the design end, sitting on the other side of the table here, on every project from small single family to schools to 830Gs. I've been part of those as well. And then, in Fairfield specifically, there has been some single family residential properties that I've designed myself. as well was, I believe it was last year, the Conservation Commission hired me to do a peer review of the last 830G application that was submitted.
And just to reiterate, at least in your, to reiterate in your opinion, what are the things that cannot be addressed in conditions of approval or changes to the permitting stage?
Sure. I think that the elevations of the system and how it relates to groundwater, the exfiltration rate that was applied, the storages that were accounted for in the system. I think that if the drainage model is updated and it, they agree with my analysis that they've overestimated some of the storages, that the model is not going to be functioning as they intended. Again, in my opinion, it would be showing increases in peak rates of runoff and or volumes. Doesn't mean that there's not a way to make it work. And I'm not looking to say that, right? I think there is a way to make it work. I think it's just some technical things that need to be worked out. At the end of the day, can it be done? Yes, I think it can be done. But I think as of right now, with what is designed on paper, I don't believe that what is there is actually functional.
Do you consider at least the change of going to the 500-year storm? Does that affect anything that you've done, or did you consider that in your analysis?
I did not consider that, no. I think there's enough concern that I have in the way the calculations were done that it's going to affect the low-end storms, and those the same concerns would carry through the 500-year storm as well.
I just want to make sure.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Braun has a question.
Commissioner Braun, go ahead.
This got a WPCA permit for sewer, but since the plans do not include any drainage into the sanitary sewer system for the two different garages, should that go back to WPCA to evaluate that? Because the plans do not have anything for drainage, and my understanding is garages have to drain to the sanitary sewer system.
That is correct. If my experience has always been that if floor drains are provided within a parking garage, it has to go through its own dedicated oil brick separator and connected into the sanitary sewer system. The flow from that is typically a very low flow. Think about drips coming off of a car after a rainstorm. It's not a lot of water. I don't recall in any of my experience ever having to go back to a WPCA to get reapproval if floor drains are decided that they want to be installed and connected to sewer. There's no building code that says that they have to be. So I've seen it both ways.
And I have another question. I always get concerned with water quality, not just water quantity. It seems to me that the treatment of the vortex is at the end of the system, not at the beginning. So the water that's infiltrating, and of course we don't have test pits for the first infiltrator by Tunks's Hill. We don't know how high the groundwater is, but assuming it's only about a foot below the bottom, like the other one is, it could be just dirty water going into the soil. So would it be, is there a way of just redesigning this, even if it means scaling down the building, to allow biofiltration or other mechanisms of low impact development, which would then do a better job at remediating the water in addition to dealing with the water quantity?
There are certainly alternate ways to handle water quality. In this particular development, I don't know that I would necessarily change or recommend a change to the treatment train, if you will, that's out here. As was stated, there's minimal driveway runoff that's tributary to these systems. We're dealing with primarily roof runoff, which is not going to have the same level of contaminants that parking lots and driveways will have. So from a water quality standpoint, I personally don't have an issue with an oil grid separator located at the tail end of this system.
But there's actually no remediation of the dissolved toxins, right? Because the oil, the vortex does not deal with, dissolved like acid rain or nitrogen or phosphorus. My concern is that if this system overflows, we were told last time it's flowing right down Soundview Avenue towards the wetland that's downstream, I don't know, 100 yards or so. So that's my concern, that you'll have dirty water not cleansed flowing down Soundview, which is a pretty steep hill down there. If they scaled back the building, like took off part of the L shape that goes up around Soundview, could they put in some biological, vegetative buffer more than they don't really have any now? Would that help with this? Would that be something they could do if they scale it back? Because that's something I was hoping to ask the applicant. If you scale this building back by removing a few rooms and the gym and the storage rooms, maybe you could take another 20 feet off the building and add some more biofiltration.
That is certainly an option. I'm not going to say no to that. But at the same time, I think that there's other ways that stormwater could be handled, on site, without sounding like I'm pro development here. I think that stormwater remediation underneath the Tungus Hill parking garage could be done where you can get more filtering and treatment of certain systems handled there as well. I think there's multiple options that could be considered without just saying that the building has to be scaled back necessarily.
Well, that's another option. So that would require basically a redesign of the drainage system.
I think that is something that needs to be, at least considered given the soil restrictions that are, shown around the perimeter of this property, as well as the elevations that these systems are located at, and the horizontal distances that we're dealing with. I think, that a second look should be had at that to make sure that they're providing an adequate amount of storage. And it may mean that what is provided around the northern and western perimeter may not be adequate, and additional storage treatment may be needed elsewhere on site.
Thank you.
I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Not yet, sir. In your professional opinion, at least as it stands now, you didn't see an issue with the water quality of the drainage.
That is correct. I don't have an issue with the
That's
water
fine. I just want to make sure I understood it. Thank you, sir.
I have a question.
Sir, no, it's not up to your job to be asking questions of the other people here. Oh, yes, sir. Come on.
I was going up to the front.
Sir, right here, because we need you on camera.
Sit down, is that what you said?
Oh, sit down. I thought you said you're going up
I'm
front.
gonna go up front, yeah.
No, we need you on camera here.
Okay. My name is Matthew
Feel free
Howard.
to stand if you like or sit, whatever you like. But
I live at 6 Somerville Street. For many years, I had a building that I owned on Tungus Hill Road, so I know that area very well. It is highly dangerous. It's very, very busy, Tungus overall, and it is going to be much more dangerous. There are children all over the place. It's a steep road. There's cars coming and going like crazy. It is going to be much, much more dangerous. Just a couple of questions. Can you punch up the Amazon?
sir, they don't have control over that.
The delivery? They can't punch that up?
They can't. I'm just going to ask. And Ms. Harrigan, do you mind, please? Sure. Thank you.
Does it go on the big screen?
It is, yeah. They don't have control. That's why.
I worked in Amazon twice, and I've supervised drivers.
Sir, just because it will catch the record better, we need you with the microphone.
Sure.
As best you can, just point. We have a cursor to kind of help.
A couple things. First of all, Amazon drivers are trained never to back up. That's how you dent the van. And not to go in garages if at all possible. Can you tell me, where's the vestibule? Like, where would the driver be dropping off packages there?
They're not going to, it's not a back and forth. So they're going to ask the question, and then during rebuttal, they'll answer.
All right. That's the thing. You got to look at this and figure out what's the Amazon driver going to do. They're not going to be pulling in. They're going to have the side of the van where they can drop off their packages. If you have 30 or 50 units in the building, they're going to have, 10 to 15 packages. They're probably going to use their hand truck, their dolly. So they're going to pull up on the side somewhere. They're not going to pull inside the garage. They're going to pull up on Soundview or they're going to pull up on Tungus. There has to be spots somewhere where they can pull in and do that. Otherwise, they're going to have to double park in front of cars or block traffic or whatever. It doesn't seem feasible. I don't see an area where the delivery truck can pull in because they're definitely not pulling in. My second question is, where's the dumpster? Because I don't see where's the garbage truck is supposed to go in there and get the dumpster and empty the dumpster. and I don't see a dumpster provided here. My next question is, it's actually about the trees, and this relates to the early one. I guess it's really to Fairfield's detriment that we don't have any policies whatsoever for trees and old growth trees, whether they're on town property or private property. There's no regulations, there's no design standards. And I think we got to do something about that. That's not right. My bigger question then, I asked about the dumpsters, the children. Here's the bigger thing. Are these going to be purchases or rentals? All right. See, here's the thing. This is Tunxus, and people don't really realize this. This is really the DNA of Fairfield. Fairfield is not suburbia and everything that we realize from post-World War II. The beginnings of Fairfield started as West Bridgeport. When Bridgeport was factories and mills and everybody working there, Fairfield was the first hamlet outside of Bridgeport. All right. So all those neighborhoods, Tunxus, Stratfield, Brookfield, Sport Hill, those are all the engros where people could realize the American dream and buy homes in Fairfield. That's the DNA of Fairfield, is helping people realize the American dream, especially Tunxus, more than any other neighborhood in Fairfield. All right. So I think, and we really want people to buy. We want a home ownership. So to be opening up 60 more units that are rentals, that leads to long-term health problems, lower quality of life, and everything else. So if you could really look into making those purchases so you can realize the American dream. On top of which, I feel you have a moral obligation. That area, you might not know, they call it like Hungarian. It's more than that. It's really the people of the Carpathian Plain. If you look at that area, it's like there's a big plain, there's Hungary, there's Austria, there's the Balkans, and part of Romania, the Romani people, the Roma people, which used to be called gypsies, which you don't call anymore, is right there. There was the Gypsy Springs open space is right there next to it, which is neglected by the town, by the way. So I want to know really what you want to do. We're trying to recultivate and rebuild that area. I would like to reach out to the people of the Carpathian Plain, as crazy as that sounds, to the Romani people who suffered horribly in World War II, and over 1 million people were killed, and bringing them back in and rebuilding that neighborhood of the people of Hungary and Carpathian Plain there. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you. Sorry. Next one. Sorry.
Oh, and don't build with a flat roof. I have one of those.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is James Capola, resident of Fairfield for 18 years, currently at 185 Soundview Ave for the past 11 years. I was married in 2009 on Penfield Beach. My wife and I have 3 children, Mia, Ella, and Jack, ages 11, 9, and 4, and we're very proud to call Fairfield our home. I share the same safety concerns as my neighbors with this proposed massive structure with 46 units and 55 parking spaces. We don't even have 46 homes on Soundview Ave in its entirety. Cars are already parked up and down Soundview Ave. Residents, however, do reserve the right to park on the street as it's public property in a neighborhood full of small homes compressed on 1/10 of an acre properties, most with small, narrow driveways. Roads are narrow and you often have to pull over to let cars through. Soundview Ave essentially functions as a 1-lane road. Adding this massive structure would bring way too much traffic volume for our neighborhood, and I'm concerned for the safety of the children who play outside and walk to school. As you know, there are no sidewalks on Soundview Ave. Additionally, the sidewalk project leading to McKinley School has been delayed, which is concerning. I have 3 young children, and as it is, I do not let them play in our front yard on Soundview Ave, as visibility is poor, and I don't trust that the kids and oncoming traffic would see each other in time. Adding a proposed 5-story apartment complex, it's going out.
It's okay. It's not you. Go ahead.
Adding a proposed 5-story apartment complex with insufficient parking for proposed residents and guests will absolutely cause a large influx of cars parked all along and around Soundview Ave. The developers said 1-bedroom units would be allowed 1 car and 2-bedroom units would be allowed 1.5 cars. It's not clear to me what 1.5 cars even means, and you have to assume there will be more than 1 car per unit, likely surpassing 80 cars. Guests visiting the residence undoubtedly will park on Soundview, and this complex will be generating lots of daily traffic volume directly on Soundview with delivery trucks, garbage trucks, Ubers, food deliveries, and general activity in and around the proposed 5-story building. Entering and exiting on the Tungus Hill side will be challenging and dangerous, as there are many who speed downhill on Tungus. Exiting the neighborhood on the Black Rock Turnpike side to head towards I-95 South by CVS is already a challenge without adding additional traffic to the neighborhood. On page 5 in the applicant's second supplemental application, it states that this proposal would not create a new safety hazard or make matters worse. If this goes forward, there's no doubt this will clearly make matters worse. There's also been no study on pedestrian traffic in our neighborhood, and attempting to conduct one now during the coldest months of the year would yield inadequate results compared to what we experience in the area through the warmer months in the year. Despite the report presented during the prior meeting on 0 accidents or speeding in the area, there was in fact an accident directly in front of 140 Soundview Ave in September 2020, which is directly near this proposed complex. In both reports, there are issues of public health and safety, both in terms of traffic and in terms of engineering. This project uniquely threatens public health and safety. Each report demonstrates this. This neighborhood is already congested, and I think this proposed complex needs to be vetoed. It will diminish the safety and quality of life for existing tax-paying residents, and that is not right from a moral and safety standpoint. It is simply not fair and not in line with this small residential community. Thank you.
Thank you.
You should give him a copy of that.
Hold on one second. What is that?
Crash report.
You want to submit it to the record? We'll take it. Sure, one. Just give it to Ms. Keel down there, Mr. Wentz.
It's just an accident.
That's a report.
My name is Roger Buscator. I've lived in Fairfield for about 42 years. Anyway, I've lived this. I'm sorry.
Your address, sir?
111 Soundview Avenue. I've lived there since 1988. My wife and I. First thing I'd like to speak about is the assigned parking spaces. In the assigned parking plan, there are 6 unassigned parking spaces, including 1 handicap space on Soundview Avenue side. This will increase the parking overflow and traffic activity on Soundview Avenue. I know we're repeating it, but this is our biggest concern, is probably our traffic on Soundview Avenue. It's going to cause this overflow from the apartment residents who don't have, who have more than 1 vehicle, and guests seeking parking spaces. This will add to the safety concerns of the pedestrians. The other thing that they had mentioned in their rebuttal is the existing and proposed setbacks between neighboring structures. In the applicant's second supplemental materials, it states that the proposed structure will be 19 feet from the home at 112 Soundview Avenue, directly across the street from me, and 40 feet from the home at 477 Tungus Hill. It does not mention that the new structure, at approximately 50 feet tall, will tower over 112 Soundview, which is about 35 feet high, blocking the sunlight from the east. The new structure will also tower over the home at 477 Tungus Hill and block the sun from both the east and the south, creating an unhealthy and undesirable environment for these homeowners and a reduced quality of life. As far as the property value study, the applicant states that the study after professional study shows that multifamily and affordable housing does not devalue nearby properties. A study of home values provided by the applicant may be correct, but it's irrelevant as far as our community goes. it uses only one city, Alexandria, Virginia, which has a population density of 10,700 people per square mile. And it is within 7 miles of Washington, D.C. And the data stops at when COVID came. Fairfield, as you know, does not have nearly the population of Alexandria and has a population density of about 2,000 people. And is about 45 miles from Midtown Manhattan. The study provided by Zillow, which has a vested interest in home values, may be accurate for Alexandria, but given their significant differences, that population density of Alexandria is 5 times greater than Fairfield, that is significantly closer to a major city. So this study really has no relevance to this project. On Salview Avenue, this very large structure is really out of place. It encroaches on the homes nearby and will definitely decrease the desirability of homes in the area. A case in point is our neighbor. Now here we have something that's just happened. It's already been said, but a neighbor at 112 had a buyer. The buyer found out about the new building going up, and he canceled the sale right 3 days before the closing, and so he's it's going to hurt him financially. He just put it up for sale, and he dropped, I think, about 35,000 from it. So anyway, now the other thing too is we hadn't talked about before is rodents. I've lived in this house for about 36 years. Sometime maybe 20 years ago, when the Stop and Shop was rebuilt, they made a rat problem, and they came up into our area. It has been pretty much under control. I haven't really seen too many since, but there are rat traps down by Stop and Shop and also by the First County Bank, which is directly across the street from Stop and Shop. My concern is with the additional people. We'll have 46 living quarters in a very small area and a lot more garbage. I think you're talking about 3 pickups a week, that this possibly could retract more rats into the area. They're not there right now, as far as I know, but they're close. In conclusion, the 2 of the 830G denials since 2020 were both in the middle of residential single-family duplex neighborhoods similar to ours. That was 277-301 Berkeley Road last year, I think it was, and 1521 Beacon View Drive. Neither of these is located in a more congested area than ours is. The traffic problems that are exacerbated by the proposal are comparable to 277-301 Berkeley. The area of town where the site is located is already a home to a concentration of affordable housing that far exceeds the affordable housing located in the rest of Fairfield, with more units approved than that still have to be built. The public policy of the state is not to concentrate lower income people into one area. This application eliminates already existing middle housing that at 467 Tungus Hill presently has 4 apartments in it. So that's going to be eliminated. So they're going to add 14, but they're really only netting 10. And the ones that presently exist don't create additional traffic problems or safety problems. Now, there's substantial evidence that the proposal provides inadequate sightline when considering the documented conditions currently in existence. The proposed development will result in additional flooding, I think, as we've feared. Section 830G of the Connecticut statute, as you will know, ensures that the municipalities cannot deny an affordable housing proposal unless there is a specific health and safety concern, health or safety, and both. For reasons cited above, the proposed development would result in quantifiable harm to public safety and health for the taxpayer voters in our Soundview area. which clearly outweighs the need for affordable housing, not to mention their increased financial stress and reduction in the quality of life. So thank you. These are the pictures of the that boxes just for you.
Spit it out. Oh, yeah, stop, there. Good evening, sir.
Hi, I'm Brian O'Gara, live at 8 Sterling Street. We've lived there since 1995, so that's 30 years. Raised our family there, 1 block over from Soundview. You've heard frequently, the clear concern and impact we feel that there's on public health and safety of this area. And it was noteworthy that, there was a reference to the conditions people had expressed before about concern over traffic, and that so this doesn't, this is an existing condition, doesn't sort of not our problem. And anyone who lives on a side street that doesn't have sidewalks and has a cut through to avoid lights, you're going to say that you're concerned about traffic safety. It's generally that's very natural. But what we're talking about here is not just an existing condition. Now you're exacerbating the problem. It's not saying it's not our problem. You really are exacerbating the problem when you're bringing in a building and the number of residences here that will impact the congestion, parking, and safety of the area. 1 parking space per unit, and their attorney indicated there's no need for parking on Soundview for this project. We live on Sterling. Over the last 5 years, we've increased from 12 residences to 17. A number of folks who are here tonight. We've got some duplexes and some 2-family condos, and there's been great enhancement, but everyone would also agree that we've gone from about 2 to 3 cars parked on the street on average, consistently. You can take it any time of the day or night, to 8 to 10, sometimes 14, 15. So that's 5 additions and increasing by 7 to 8 cars parked on the street consistently on a small side street. And now we have 40 additional new units, and they're telling us there's no need for additional street parking on Soundview. I didn't even think about the construction vehicle parking in the process. And the reason we're concerned about street parking for a number of issues, but number one, the visual barrier that you have if you're operating a motor vehicle and there's crossing pedestrians or people, especially children with parked cars on either side, it's a substantial increase in not only the amount of time people are looking for parking or navigating that street, or the length of the time that they are looking for parking and looking away from the street. It clearly impedes people's sight lines when you have that much congestion when they're looking for parking, and people are going to be looking for parking. There's already been great information shared about the concern around emergency vehicles, and the width of the street narrows as you go from Tunxus Hill down to Beaver Street, and there are substantial parts of that road that a fire truck or a major vehicle would have about 7 inches on either side if you've got 2 cars parked on either side to get through. Will they plow through in an emergency? Absolutely. But we can't deny that with that number of vehicles and the average width of vehicles today, anywhere from 73 to 79 inches, and people parking off the curb, there's no doubt that it narrows and substantially impedes the fire department's ability to get down there. And they don't only come down in a major fire. Fire trucks come down to address a number of issues. And so and have in any neighborhood. And so it clearly is a concern. I guess my last note is that, there's other things I think that we've heard that are either inconsistent or sort of vague in the responses, and you must deal with this all the time. And I commend you for your patience with the passion of the neighborhood and then the advocacy that you hear from the applicants. But, you know, now we get a landscaping plan after last time being told, there's not really going to be, you know, it's not really an issue because there's not going to be much room for that. Then you see a landscaping plan that the drawings even indicate that it extends into the street. Well, the street's already too narrow for the parking that we're talking about. So is there no consideration for the fact that you're impeding more space on the street? And you are, because there's just not a lot of room on that property. The students in the area, it's not just McKinley. I think somebody referenced it. It's Ward High School on the same street that people are walking to. So that's a substantial issue. So, and then there was some reference to signs directing visitors to come around to Soundview because that's where they would park. I don't even know how that would work. So there's just a lot of vague responses to some very appropriate questions that have been disappointing. But ultimately, the public health and safety concerns you've heard from myself and others, I think, are so significant that I really hope you take all that into account in identifying how to handle this application. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
If I may ask the commission a question.
What's the name and
Oh, Carlo, 101 Soundview. We did have a traffic study. It has
Use the
been.
microphone.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry.
Sit down.
I'm gonna stand. Thank you. We did have a traffic study performed. It was submitted. I would request that I broad stroke it just so we can hear it, if that's okay, separate from my plan. Unfortunately, he couldn't.
Again, just.
Yep.
We can.
I'll keep it moving.
Expeditious as can. It's 9 o'clock.
Okay, so sorry.
It's been submitted. I read it. I mean, if you use some highlights, so be it, but I wouldn't certainly.
I'll hit the bullet. I'll hit the bullet point. I will not read the whole thing. I just want to.
I haven't had a chance to read it. I hope you could go into a little bit of detail.
I'll do my best and I'll try and do it quickly.
Thank you.
In terms of traffic volumes, there's been tremendous increase in the volume of goods transported to residential units by Amazon, UPS, et cetera. Since most of the data collected to develop these ITE trip generation rates was pre-pandemic, the continued increased use of these delivery vehicles serving residential units is not included in current ITE projections. For every additional delivery to the site, 2 new trips in and out are produced. In addition, visitor vehicles, delivery vehicles, and for-hire vehicles that erroneously enter to try to enter the Tungus Hill Road garage will be detoured to the Soundview garage, creating more local road traffic and entering and exiting trips to both site driveways. Accordingly, there can be no question that peak hour traffic volumes projected for the multifamily development are underrepresented. According to the applicant, there's no accommodation for commercial vehicles or visitor vehicles in the Tungus Hill Road garage. Alternatively, commercial vehicles and visitors will be directed by signage to Soundview. Commercial and visitor vehicles will enter Soundview entrance. Commercial vehicles will be directed to park in the aisle parallel to space 11, and visitor vehicles will be directed to park in assigned spaces. This plan is ill-conceived and unreasonable for several reasons. The loading space provided in the Soundview garage for commercial vehicles is not designed to adequately accommodate trucks. The one loading space in the Soundview garage is not capable of accommodating the volume of Amazon, UPS, FedEx, et cetera, and for-hire vehicles. If the one loading space in the Soundview garage is occupied, delivery vehicles shall park in an unauthorized location on site and block garage traffic and or parking stalls, commercial vehicles, or other local street and circulate around the local street network. None of these options create a safe alternative. Commercial vehicles not familiar with the area will be confused looking for the Soundview garage entrance. The detour of commercial and visitor vehicles from the Tungus Hill garage to the Soundview garage will increase traffic volumes at the Soundview garage and increase the overall number of vehicles entering and exiting the site. Visitor vehicles, delivery vehicles, and for hire that erroneously enter and try to enter the Tungus Hill garage will need to turn around within the garage or back out. For parking, applicant's plan has proposed 55 on-site parking spaces for residents and guests. We've heard The applicant performed, I'll try and just skip a little bit. Based on the 85th percentile parking rates, the applicant projected that the total site peak demand would be 55 spaces. This exceeds the 52 effective spaces since 3 are handicapped and they need to remain available. The reservation of 3 dedicated handicap spaces and 6 dedicated visitor spaces leaves 46 spaces for 46 units. It is likely that some 2-bedroom units and some 1-bedroom units with more than 1 occupant would have a demand in excess of 1 vehicle per unit. As a result, it is also highly likely that overflow parking would be required on the local streets adjacent to the subject property. On Soundview Avenue, there are concerns that potential competition for existing on-street parking will adversely affect residents. Safety concerns shall arise from the prevailing existing conditions on.
Can you slow down?
I'm so trying. I'm trying to balance.
I know.
I apologize.
I understand, but you need to also comprehend this, so.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
A little slower.
On Soundview Avenue, there are concerns that potential competition for the existing on-street parking would adversely affect residents. Also, safety concerns arise from the prevailing existing conditions of on-street parking on both sides of the street. This significantly reduces the remaining travelway to less than 2 lanes, such that opposing traffic must yield to one another to safely pass on a consistent basis. As an aside, images of this exact thing were submitted. Existing pedestrian safety is also compromised by this condition, as there are no existing sidewalks or lights on Soundview Avenue, and these deficiencies, coupled with the increase in traffic from the project, results in a quantifiable public safety issue. The bottom line is that the applicant provides far fewer on-site spaces than needed to accommodate the projected demand for parking by the proposed development. As a result, the applicant will rely on on-street parking in the local residential neighborhood on substandard streets to accommodate the shortfall. The net effect is local residents will bear the brunt of the noise and inconvenience of people parking in front of their houses and occupying spaces that they could use for visitors. And I'll hit just bullets. Site distance. Parked vehicles were not considered in the site distance review provided by applicant. The current parked vehicles on Soundview Avenue plus overflow parking from the development would exacerbate the safety of vehicles traveling along Soundview Avenue and exiting the proposed site driveway. The following deficiencies have been identified after reviewing the traffic report. Providing only 1 delivery or loading space on site by the applicant is insufficient and shall create circulation issues. The ITE trip generation presented by the applicant for the multifamily development is grossly underestimated due to the current increase in home truck van deliveries and for-hire vehicles. The on-site parking spaces proposed by the applicant are clearly inadequate and shall not accommodate projected demand. Commercial or long-term parking generated from the proposed development cannot safely be achieved on Soundview Avenue, Beaver Street, or Old Stratfield Road due to their narrow width, poor lighting, no sidewalks, and the residential character of these streets, as it would be unsafe for pedestrians to walk in either the streets or on uneven ground on private homeowners' property. Backing out of driveways shall be dangerous for homeowners, as sight distance could be obscured by the proliferation of parked vehicles on the streets if the use of this space is permitted. In conclusion, based on their education, training, and experience, the deficiencies identified above are reasonably likely to create and constitute dangerous and unsafe conditions directly resulting from the proposed development. So I will
say that you retain that.
The community retained that, but we can say I retained it, sure.
That's fine. Again, it goes to my earlier point that it was a typo that it came from us.
Yes. Oh, that was actually because of that exact reason.
No worries.
So having read that, I would like to say what I was planning on saying. And so in both reports, there are issues of public health and safety in terms of traffic, in terms of engineering, and there are unique threats to this from this project to public health and safety, as each report does demonstrate. The application is grossly incomplete, according to our consultants. There is drainage that will stick out of the ground and that should have been picked up in review. Not only safety in terms of the building, but an assistant fire marshal told our community that, and I will say this one slowly, they cannot fight a fire in a building this size with the current fire department. They would require all firefighters and a truck from either Bridgeport or Norwalk should this building go up. And may that never happen. But currently, they do not have the ability to fight a fire in a building this big. The application, I feel, has a data integrity problem. And this issue should call into question and cast doubt upon any and all measurements. And it starts with the number of affordable units in the development. And the developer will continually refer to the 5-story Soundview apartment as having 14 affordable units. However, in their initial application, the drawing showed 15 units. And in a memo from Mark Barnhart to the developer, this, among other mistakes, were called out and requested to be corrected. In their second and revised application from the 23rd, the developer did not make the town requested change. The drawings still show 15 affordable units while simultaneously claiming 14. In the development, whose entire reason for being is affordable units, continually making a mistake of this magnitude should call into doubt any and all measurements. If you cannot get this basic and important number correct after having it pointed out, then the commission should not wholeheartedly trust the veracity of any other value. But it continues. As has been spoken about and will be spoken about, the developer plans for 50 HVAC units and has provided the marketing specifications for it, claiming that the noise level is within the town's acceptable limits. And this again is a data integrity issue, as one unit may produce 64 decibels of volume, but 50 units produces 82. And that is more than triple the volume, the loudness to the recipient. So I also have a little chart here that has been submitted, but it does grow logarithmically. So the more units, it does get louder. So saying it is 64 decibels, it will not be. And that assumes that all units are running at peak operational without the pumps kicking on or off, which we all know compressors make noise. But it continues. And the developer claims that they will place a shield around the units at 23 feet from the edge. And they did provide very lovely marketing images of the potential options in tab 8. However, in the material provided, the manufacturer of those shieldings make no claim of sound attenuation or muting, and nor does the applicant make any quantifiable claim of noise reduction. The applicant has said the responsibility is not to create new safety hazards or make an existing one worse. And the applicant, by intentional decision, will make an existing condition worse by making the deliberate decision to have only guest delivery and trash pickup on Soundview Avenue, a building of 46 units and 15 affordable, according to the schematics. Is planned to only have 6 available spaces for guests, and any overage will, by intentional design, go to Soundview Avenue. Given the 3-prong response in an emergency of Fairfield, of a police, fire, and EMT, and the acknowledgement that a fire truck would not be able to enter the garage, an ambulance would be forced to stop significantly further away, the distance of the truck, and by delaying emergency and slowing response time, this is when seconds matter. To go back to the noise, it's very near to my heart, but there are very understated but very severe health concerns when it comes to noise. Submitted, if you happen to see, there was about 20 studies submitted that shows all of the various health risks associated with noise. And when I say noise, I don't mean somebody screaming or loud machinery right in your ear. I'm talking, these studies show that low-level noise, consistent low-level noise, 50 decibels, which is probably about the sound of my voice, because I can project, I guess, can have significant health impacts, not just on hearing, but on cardiovascular health, stroke, dementia, and others. So I think there was an article that, like secondhand smoke, excessive ambient noise is not just a nuisance, but a health problem for millions of Americans. Long-term exposure to road traffic noise was associated with increased risks of all-cause mortality, cardiovascular mortality, and morbidity in the general population, particularly for stroke in the elderly. Exposure to road noise traffic of greater than 65 decibels, independent of nitrogen dioxide, was associated with an adverse change in blood pressure and cardiovascular biochemistry. Living close to high traffic roads was found to exert a small but tangible effect on the risk of stroke. Road traffic noise increases the risk of stroke. Residential proximity to high traffic roads increases the risk of diabetes, and the effect is evident within city centers. One that I think is very important for our side of town: women exposed to high noise levels, and in most studies that's 80 decibels or greater, during pregnancy are at a significantly higher risk for having for gestational age newborns, gestational hypertension, and infants with congenital malformations. And this is just from association with noise. Traffic noise, and air traffic noise in particular, is an important cardiovascular risk factor. Our studies finding that low frequency noise can negatively impact high order functions such as logical reasoning, mathematical calculation, and data processing. And therefore, it is important to consider the potential negative consequences. And as well, observational and experimental studies have shown that noise exposure leads to annoyance, disturbs sleep, affects patient outcomes and staff performance in hospitals, increases the occurrence of hypertension and cardiovascular disease, and is shown to impair cognitive performance in school children. And again, so this is not one unit at 65, 50 units at 82, assuming there's no other noise. That's 82 decibels. So I think that that's very important as well. We've talked about landscaping. And one other thing that has not come up with landscaping is the images provided look very nice. I think given the alternative, landscaping, trees and shrubbery are very nice, but this is a marketing tool and an amenity for the building. I think nice, green, beautiful trees will help the building look good and help keep rents up. That being said, because it will be an amenity, because it is an expectation for buildings of this size, you're going to have to upkeep it. These are new planted trees. These don't have 50, 70, 100 years of adaptation to the soil and to the water. They're going to have flatbed trucks to come in, to take care of them, to mow, to trim. And because some of the trees they've shown in their images are above the second floor, they're about 30 feet. You're going to have cherry pickers and other high volume equipment. If the landscaping is going to be watered with municipal sources, then you're asking the community to bear the negative externality of the associated cost of demand, as well as a depleted resource, as we've had droughts in the summer. And if not, and they're going to use a non-municipal source and truck in water, then you're going to have another truck on the street for several hours, at least once a week, especially for new growth. I think I will allow that to be what I will say. Thank you all very much.
Can I ask this gentleman a question?
Commissioner, for me?
Has a question.
I have a very quick question.
I have a very quick answer.
Okay, so you came up with a different calculation than what the applicant has said about the number of AC units. Is that, I didn't think of it till now, but we've kept hearing there's one per unit, but there are other things that would normally require AC, like the lobby or the gym. I don't know if the storage units, but is that how you came up with 50? AC?
So I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Continue.
Go ahead.
Oh, that's my question.
So I used what was presented in the application. So only using the materials given on the schematic for the roof, there were 50 slots. So
they said there were 46, but I guess there's 50. Okay, so they did show it.
Well, I think that goes back to my point of there are major data integrity issues.
Okay.
So thank you.
Hi, my name is Cindy Elwood and I live at 186 Soundview. My comment has to do with traffic and safety. The applicant makes a claim that most one-bedroom apartments will have only one resident. This estimation is far below the average for household occupants in both Connecticut and Fairfield. Given that, according to the latest census information, the average persons per household in Connecticut is 2.47, and the average persons per household in Fairfield is 2.74. It is reasonable to believe that applicant's estimation of occupancy is reasonably low. Additionally, there is an average of 2 cars per household in Connecticut, which would make the household parking total of 1.2 spaces per unit dangerously low. And then I have a little chart I made here so that I could just read it to you. So in Connecticut, if you take 2.47 houses, and that would in 146 units, that would be 113 people. And if you figure 60% of them own a car, that's 68 autos. If 75% of them own a car, that's 85 autos.
Now, that's just for the state of Connecticut. If you take the percentage for Fairfield, that would be 125 people and 46 units, 75% with a 60% ownership, or 94 cars at 75%. So you can see that that estimate for parking spaces is a bit low, and we would have a lot more cars on Soundview and Beaver. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Kat Mata. I live at 123 Beaver Street, which is about a block and a half away from the proposed project. My first question is, this photo, there's an aerial photo. Do you have access to that to put that up on the screen?
Which one is it?
It's an aerial photo that shows the proposed project with a big red square around it.
I think even in the most recent PowerPoint, it was green, but
No.
slide over or down, slide down.
Well, if we could have that one and the old one. No, because this has to do with the trees and that, well, that doesn't show any trees. So that, well, that's fine. Okay. So if anybody wants to look back at the original proposed, that shows the amount of trees that are on both the 80 Soundview, 467 Soundview, and the one on the corner of Beaver and Soundview, 66 Soundview, compared to this now where 66 Soundview's trees are already missing. I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind while I read. And my other point that I wanted to make is when David Ginter came up to speak, I just want to say that we, the neighbors of Soundview, all support that and have all collectively helped to pay for his services. It's not just on Carlo, that he's not the only one who's concerned about it. We are all concerned, and we are all chipping in our time and our efforts to support. You know, he seems like the spearhead of it, but we're all working with him. Okay. Reading glasses. Sorry. Can you hear me? Okay. We acknowledge the developer has plans for landscaping on the property, but we have strong concerns for the removal of approximately 10 large old-growth deciduous trees currently on the property. These trees are the largest density concentration of large old-growth deciduous trees in the area on one combined property. And even though it's two properties, it technically is now going to be one. Previous to being made aware of this development, proposed development, a different developer removed a significant number of trees, of large old growth trees, from the adjacent property at 66 Soundview Ave. As you can see from this picture, clearly there are no trees left on that property. If you take the two of them, more than half of the large old growth deciduous trees would be removed from this one block. So as you can see from this whole block, that's about half of the block going from Beaver Street to Old Stratfield, and going from Soundview to Tonsis Hill. That's more than half the block. All of the old growth deciduous trees will be gone. Our neighborhood has a variety of wildlife living in close proximity to our homes, including herds of deer, foxes, raccoons, woodchucks, birds, coyotes, and bats, which I'll be referring to this evening. Bats have been sighted in our neighborhood on numerous occasions throughout the years, and it is our belief that they roost in the neighborhood trees, quite possibly on this proposed site. I have submitted via email photos showing the side-by-side of 80 Soundview and 66 Soundview. Aerial view shows trees on both lots, and the street shows the 66 Soundview after all the trees were removed, which we can clearly see here. Bats are both federally protected as well as locally protected by the state of Connecticut. The bats I'm referring to specifically are the tree roosting bats, such as the silver-haired, the hoary, and the red bat. These bats' populations have declined greatly in historical numbers in the eastern woodlands. It is our position that as a large old-growth deciduous trees are removed for development, the natural habitats for these bats are greatly impacted. Their chances for survival are greatly diminished. Why should we like bats? It goes in and out. Why should we like bats? Bats are the only significant predator of night flying insects like mosquitoes and moths. They provide a natural insect control for many agricultural pests that can damage crops. One little brown bat can consume 1,200 mosquitoes in 1 hour. Bats are great pollinators and also help to prevent the spread of diseases such as West Nile virus, which is spread through mosquitoes. Bats are among the world's most fascinating, beneficial, and likable animals, yet people often fear them and misunderstand them. They are the only mammals capable of true flight. There are over 1,300 different species of bats in the world. 9 different species of bats can be found in Connecticut, and all but one of them, the big brown bat, are on Connecticut's list of endangered, threatened, and special concern species. 4 of these are classified as state special concern species, and 1, the Indiana bat, is classified as a state federally endangered species. As bat populations continue to decline worldwide, their potential for extinction only grows. While some of the challenges they face are endemic to their order, such as their slow gestation periods and diseases like the white nose syndrome, the primary cause of their decline is human activity, including the ongoing destruction of their natural habitats, development of land, hunting and persecution for sport and meat, the growing use of wind turbine energy, the proliferation of harmful myths. The 3 species of the tree roosting bats, the silver-haired, the hoary, and the red bat, are not adversely affected by white nose syndrome, but their populations have declined from historical levels in eastern woodlands. They occur in relatively low numbers throughout Connecticut. All 3 have been listed as species of special concern in Connecticut since the first official list was released in 1992. All 3 species are of one special conservation concern due to regional declines. Since the discovery of the white nose syndrome in North America in 2006, nearly 7 million cave bats have perished. 7 million. We're talking about the tree roosting bats. The fungus infects the hibernating bat's muzzle and wings, irritating the bat, causing it to wake up frequently and burn through stored fat reserves too soon. Starving bats are forced to leave their hibernacula in search of food, which leads to death in cold winter months. Deaths from white nose syndrome for some species like the little brown bat and the northern long-eared bats have resulted in over a 90% population decline in this region.
Ma'am, I assume your point though is just that these bats are using this area for nesting purposes and this will.
We want to know if they are. I believe they are. So I'm getting to that. Connecticut's 3 tree roosting bat species are mostly solitary throughout the year and do not hibernate like in cave-like environments, making them much more difficult to study. Tree roosting bats generally migrate long distances to more southern latitudes during the winter. Upon the arrival to their winter range, many tree bats will still hibernate during periods of cold weather, emerging to feed during periods of warm winter weather. While considered safe from the effects of white nose syndrome, migratory tree bats are still facing threats. Habitat loss is one of their threats. Light the night right. Sorry. Bats are not fans of bright lights, and excessive lighting can disrupt their feeding patterns. Consider installing motion activated lights or low intensity red colored bulbs. Making sure they have time to make notes on this. This way you'll keep the night sky dark and the bats undisturbed. Skip the chemicals and pesticides and herbicides. You might promise a pristine garden, but they also harm the very creatures that you're trying to attract. The native plants thrive in their native surroundings. Do the proposed plans include native plantings? Also, in one of our neighboring states, the state of New Jersey, if you plan a project that involves clearing trees, chances are you will have to consider the impact to bats. New Jersey is a home to 9 species of bats, 2 of which are federally protected. And I'm just going to skip through all that. Because these species are federally protected, certain precautions must be taken before planning a project in or near bat habitat in order to prevent project delays and costly violations. We respectfully request that we respectfully request a BAT environmental impact study to be provided by the developer prior to any proposed construction or tree removal. We would like to be reassured that there are no bat habitats that will be disturbed or destroyed by this development. Please remember that bats are endangered and protected by the state of Connecticut and federal law. Thank you.
What do you think? Look on the easier holding it out because it has to be closer to your mouth.
Like that?
Perfect. Give it a try. Yeah.
Okay.
That looks like it's fine.
I just don't want the reverberation. Hi, I'm Lauren O'Brien. I live on Edison Avenue. My late husband and I raised our family there. I've been there now for 25 years. So a lot of people made a lot of very good points tonight. Some that you've heard in repetition. I'll try and be expeditious. First of all, thank you for the commission's work and for the zoning, Jim staff. I know that it's tedious and hard, and it's super important because with the prevalence of 8-30G, we're being bombarded, as other municipalities are across the country. And we want to build our town better and smarter. So I would bet there isn't a person in this room or anyone watching that isn't in favor of affordable housing. Our entire neighborhood is in favor of affordable housing, mid-level homes. That's why we purchased our affordable homes properties in this quiet, compact residential neighborhood of mid-level homes. As we grow, it should be a win-win for the town and the neighborhoods. Fairfield, we, the neighbors, we want to work with builders who genuinely want to enhance the amount of affordable housing and the town at the same time. This need not be adversarial or nasty. We have a common goal, and I hope it can turn it more into those type of interactions and less gotchas.
If it helps, you can submit that for the record and hit some key points on it. I see your your written statement.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, so feel free to just hit the main points.
I will. But compromise is needed when a project affects more than one person. As residents, we are in this for the long haul. We are not one and done as the builders are. While the applicant has stated that they need not be concerned or it is not their problem if increased traffic and lack of sidewalks affect school children, we do care. We care about all the walkers, including potentially these new renters. The need for mid-level homes is irrefutable. I appreciate all the examples submitted. Clearly, the applicant feels very strongly about the need for affordable. I thought for sure at the end of those 50+ pages that I'd see a revised increase in the number of affordable units in this project. I didn't. I appreciate the new submission detailing that towns across the US have increased their affordable housing stock with gentle density growth that fits, the projects fit into their neighborhoods. Few, if none, were a 5-story building in a small residential neighborhood. There were a few in Chicago and in Denver, but none in small residential neighborhoods. Certainly not with 2 parking garages. I would say fewer than 5% of the, this is what affordable looks like, actually didn't look anything like the 5-story apartment building being proposed on a small residential street with only a net gain of 10 affordable units. Of concern are noise and traffic. As some of my neighbors have said, there's concerns with the application. The studies that were brought in, we're not comparing apples to apples. We're using pre-COVID research, and there are sweeping generalizations, unsupported statements by the applicant. I have grave concerns that as proposed, this project is just too massive. It's overscale for the lot size and the area and the space it has on a small residential street. As proposed, as discussed, it will divert all deliveries and commercial traffic, renter parking, overflow parking, visitor parking onto a small street, not the larger state road. Why? Why does it all have to go on a small street? I put that to you, the commission. Amazon will park in the road. They will block the street. And here's why. I researched. The company does not allow its drivers to pull onto private property for fear of liability, for damaged property, and to save time. These trucks are in a hurry. Speed is the name of the game. If the drivers want to keep their jobs, they do not pull into parking garages. Another issue, it was requested by one of the commissioners that the applicant resubmit due to the plans being non-legible. The text on the most recent plans submitted yesterday cannot be read. Submitted yesterday for tonight's meeting, they're not available for the public because you can't read any of the text. This is unprofessional and sloppy at best, and at worst, well, I hope it's not intentional. Here we are at deadline. The applicant has not corrected the problem of documents not being able to be read, submitted at the 11th hour. Yet here we are. Do we have to move forward to adhere to a deadline when there's non-compliance or a total lack of good faith by the applicant? Where does that leave the neighbors? Okay, let's go to traffic and emergency response concerns. How will you, the TPZ, protect the town and then factor in the huge amount of approved 8-30G projects and other construction not yet approved, but not yet built, or built but not yet occupied at all, certainly not to full capacity? My quick calculation has us at about 1,200 units. And you guys know these numbers. I don't know if the audience does. We have 856 approved, not built, 146 recently built, just starting to occupy, 143 denied and in court, and then 146 currently pending with PTZ. Black Rock Turnpike alone, there are 268 approved. There's another 356 in the preliminary stages. This is going to be traffic on Black Rock Turnpike. It's going to interfere with kids going to the high school, going to the grade school. They're the people I'm going to pass on my way to the grocery store. How are you going to factor all this in? Because you've already approved it. But we're using old studies, pre-COVID, but the decision you're making that's going to affect the town literally forever, you don't even know what it's going to be. I don't envy you. Your job. Planning is a guest at best. Let's not aim to work to create bad situations that are totally avoidable. We want the town to plan cognizant of the worst situations that we want to avoid for the best case outcomes and safest neighborhoods. Let's talk about the fire truck. The applicant stated that the fire marshal didn't ask for the fire truck. No, they didn't. We did. And I did it once before. And because I asked for a fire truck for the project on Berwick and Fairchild Avenue, it prompted Jim Wendt to reach out to the fire marshal and ask if they were aware of any issues for the apparatus accessing the streets due to traffic volumes on street parking issues. Now, this is interesting. There was a code meeting in December, but this memo went out in March. And I think we found out about the meeting maybe 2 weeks before the neighbors did. It all falls to the neighbors, but with such lack of advance notice, we're not experts. I think we need to improve that. It's not fair. So he asked if there would be any problems. This is what came back. Now, the fire marshal didn't feel the need to come out. We asked them to bring a truck out because you can do studies all day long and you can use formulas and projections, but nothing tells you better than driving the truck down the street. The fire marshal replied, a vehicle waiting to turn onto Kings Highway, yada, yada, that you'll have this. Basically, the net of this is, as far as the backup traffic, there should not be an issue if the side street width allows two-way passage and parked vehicles do not reduce the clear width. Both situations occur currently on Soundview. When we brought the truck down, and just to set the record straight, it wasn't a covert operation. There was nothing nefarious or clandestine. We just asked people to bring their cars so we could have a real life scenario with cars on each side. I have been monitoring the cars in the morning on Soundview, and consistently there's an average of 7 to 10 cars parked, and I've supported that with photographs, which I will submit. We wanted to replicate the current residents, potential proposed new renters, and the visitors to both those demographics. Upsettingly so, misrepresentation has been, the applicant submitted cars were not parked close to the curbs. Well, in contrast to what was submitted in the applicant's revised material, no, cars were not just parked close to the curb. They were parked as close as possible. And I have photographs to support that. Normal conditions say if you want to avoid getting clipped being parked on the street. Additionally, in several cases, vehicles were parked, and look, I know it's late, so I'm not going to pull these pictures out. You're going to see them. I'll describe them. Vehicles were parked on the curb. My Honda Odyssey, the back wheel was literally on the curb. There was a silver truck in front of me. That back wheel was on the lawn. So were we trying to reduce the space? No, we were not. The result was the fire truck came up Old Stratfield, headed north, and could not make the turn to head east down Soundview. It then drove around the block, easily making the turn onto the State Road 58, Tuxas Hill Cutoff. Then via, I'm not sure which roads it went on to arrive at the top of Soundview. It traveled east down Soundview, but had to stop at the far side of the intersection of Old Stratfield because the road with parking on both sides was not wide enough for the truck to pass. And as people have mentioned, the gentleman that came, the lieutenant, whoever he was, he said, "Oh, don't worry, we'd push him right out of the way." Well, is that what we want to plan for? We're going to put a building there knowing that if there's a fire, we're going to bulldoze cars out of the way? That's not making a situation better. That's making the quality of life worse. The applicant has also stated within the application, people should just park in their driveways. Okay, so let me get this straight. We have new people coming into the neighborhood who have more rights than the current homeowners. Is that making the situation better? No, it's making it worse. It's decreasing the quality of life and the safety. I actually have pictures of the parking in the neighborhood that shows this is a small, condensed neighborhood. Many people have a single lane driveway. There's two double driveways. One is Jeff's and one is another fellow named Scott's. Everybody else has a single lane. I know when my husband was alive, we had two vehicles. One was on the road, one was in the driveway to provide easy access to whoever was going to take which vehicle. It's that way all over the neighborhood. It's not just Soundview, and the pictures support that. The pictures of the day that we did the fire truck, yeah, there was a lot of cars there. However, there's always a lot of cars. I have a picture going from east to west on Soundview, cars all the way up and down, because that's how parking is. It's just a fact. In the applicant, page 1, number 5, fire department access roads, routes should be 20 feet in width. The total width at the narrowest point is 23.5 feet, curb to curb. No parking, just curb to curb.
That's true.
Now, how will a fire truck fit? Applicant states residents cannot measure street width with a tape measure. However, makes sweeping statements of generalizations without any supporting documentation that all streets in town are the same width. Soundview isn't even consistently the same width from top to bottom. It ranges from 30 to 23.5 feet. This area was originally called Fairmont Park. It was laid out 100 years ago. Not surprisingly, the widths aren't consistent. The streets aren't all consistent. There's other consistency that's been hit upon. It's frustrating. I like to be fair, but when I've got the applicant saying that the building is going to be 40 something feet, when in fact it's 55 plus feet because they're averaging it. How do we trust this application? And how do we trust this applicant if they're constantly cutting corners, merging things together? It comes off as disingenuous to me. Page 6, if there are pedestrian safety concerns or an existing condition, at some point in the application he stated, but no one's complaining, so it can't really be a problem. I don't know about you guys, but when something happens, I don't complain every time. I don't call every time. Often if there's an issue, there's a kid in the neighborhood that rides a dirt bike. I finally did call because it was 1 o'clock in the morning and he woke me up. But during the afternoon, do I call? No. So stating that there isn't a problem because nobody calls is like a chef saying to the wait staff, how do they like the food? How do they like the food? Oh, that was great. You know how they really know? They go look at the bus buckets. The food that's not eaten tells them how it is. So saying that no one's complaining is not really representational of the issues that the neighborhood deals with. Walkers will be, the applicant's responsibility is not to create or worsen safety hazards, as we've discussed. The walkers will be school children, pedestrians, teenagers, and adults. They're all our concern, not just the school kids. And oh, by the way, telling them to go out the front door, not the back. I don't know if any of you had teenagers at any time, but good luck with that. The lack of sidewalks. Okay, so we build this thing and we have a lack of sidewalks. When are we going to address that? After a tragedy? After some kid gets hit? After an adult is maimed? When are we going to address it? Many of my neighbors have tabled how this will create and worsen safety hazards. I won't belabor that. In closing, I don't know how you plan going forward, but I know that I bought my house here. It's the biggest investment I have. I also know, having done work and a lot of research on 8-30G, your hands are tied in a lot of ways. However, public health and safety, it's clear. I will submit all this, including the memo. And what I don't understand, Jim, is, Mr. Wen, when it was brought up that a fire truck came out, why wasn't there any correspondence between zoning and the fire marshal? It was done in the past, and it was part of the reason for the denial on Berwick. And that's a concern as a neighbor. Why was the onus on us to call the fire department and say, please bring a truck? It shouldn't be, but it is. These pictures were all taken on the 22nd. Okay, we're on the curb. All right, so it's not as it was. Look, this guy, he's on the lawn. So the statement that we tried to make the road look as narrow as possible, not the case. I'm looking for one picture that will help. Okay, taken this morning. See that? It's a young lady on her way to Ward High School on an electric scooter. Where is she? In the middle of the road, because that's what kids do. Mm-hmm. Yes, we need a safe neighborhood. I want affordable housing. I want the town to figure out a way to make this work, but not putting all the work on the neighbors. Thanks for your time.
Generally the case that if we have questions for fire department or other staff, we wait till the end of the closing of hearing to talk to them about it.
This was before, about a month.
Talking about Berkowitz though, right?
Berwick.
Berwick, yeah, I think it was after the hearing, but maybe I'm wrong.
Excuse me?
I thought that was after the hearing for Berkowitz, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, it was before. Those hearings didn't happen until April and May. There was a code meeting in December. We knew nothing.
Code meeting.
And March is when Jim reached
No,
out.
that makes sense with a code meeting.
After the fire truck came.
I get it. But code meeting didn't happen here, I don't think so. Sir, go ahead.
Yep. Hi, good evening. Ray Mata. I live at 123 Beaver Street, lived on Beaver Street since 1976. So I lived in the area since then and seen the area grow and just grow. Back in the day when it was just my family, my sisters and I, there might have been a few kids. We were the only kids. Everybody else lived on Berkeley and Marlboro Terrace, always going over there. But now there's a lot more children, a lot more families that are in the area. I just want to comment just quickly, and I'll be quick, the average number of cars. And I think, there should be some regulation. I don't know if there is or if there's planning on it, but, our whole neighborhood, it was noted already that a lot of these houses were built in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Back when cars were expensive and most families only had one car. And I think we can all agree that most families today have at least 2 cars. Single person, obviously, 1 car. But if your partner has a car, that makes it 2 cars for a single person. So with families, you can have two cars, 3 cars. So I just wanted to make that. And I know that some of the new construction was done at the corner of Old Stratfield and Sterling. On the left-hand side, when you're going up the street, those houses that were built, you know, they're single driveways. I mean, that's totally unrealistic. And now the cars park on the street, sometimes blocking your view to turn onto Old Stratfield Road. So I just wanted to make a comment about that. There was another comment about something else, but I'll forgo that. So I just wanted, and I'll be quick, just wanted to just reiterate some stuff that my colleagues have mentioned, my neighbors, but just talking about distances with regards to the affordable housing units that are in the area. Someone had quoted the numbers that were already there, that already been approved and or still pending. So I just wanted to do a quote from the June 13th Town Planning and Zoning Commission. From the minutes, the public policy, I quote, "The public policy of our state is not to concentrate all the lower income people in one area. It is also the policy of our state and the town of Fairfield to increase our middle housing stock. This application eliminates already existing middle housing that does not add traffic, overflow parking, or pedestrian hazards," unquote. Second quote, "The area of town where the site is located is already home to a concentration of affordable housing that far exceeds the affordable housing located in the rest of the town, with more units approved that have yet to be built," unquote. Again, from the June 13th Town Planning and Zoning Commission minutes. Of the 20 listed, approved or in appeal developments within the town of Fairfield, excluding Southport, Westport, etc., 20% of the units were within a half mile of this proposed 5-story 80 Soundview apartment development. An additional 40% of the units are within half mile to 3/4 of a mile. And then another 10% are within 3/4 and a mile of this proposed 5-story building on 80 Soundview Avenue apartment development. 60% of the developments approved by the town are pushed to this one area of town. And then I have visuals. You can see the concentration of the complexes in comparison to ours, and with a red dot and so forth. And then it has the list of those developments. So can't remember what else I was going to say, but I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Room, is there anybody else, sir, there, anybody else that wishes to be heard? Or, it's okay, you can sit for now, I'm just trying to get a sense. So see,
Very quick.
see 3 others that wanted to be heard, is that, okay. 4, 5. Can you just slide over for 1 second, please? Sorry. Mayor Hollister, we said we would revisit the request for an extension, as Commissioner Braun had said earlier. Your thoughts on that, considering where we are and we have to go through your rebuttal?
Yeah, I was going to address that at the end of my rebuttal, which I think at this point will be less than 10 minutes.
I think your rebuttal is less than 10 minutes. Okay. But you don't, I guess my question is now, knowing where we are at 9:45 at 10 o'clock, normal curfew, Commissioner Braun asked for it earlier. I wouldn't mind asking it now, is having an extension for an extra, for you to potentially finish up next, if this.
Well, I can give you the answer.
Yeah, sorry.
I can give you what our answer is now. I wanted to give you the explanation, but candidly, I haven't heard anything that needs to be reviewed after this hearing. Mr. Ginter's memo, frankly, was the one that gave us the most pause this afternoon, but we read it through very carefully, and he said right from this seat that pretty much everything he raised was a minor technical issue that can be addressed with a condition or
Fair enough.
approval.
So your thought is, at this point, you want to press forward and finish tonight?
Correct, but let me just make one more point. If we extend the hearing 2 weeks, inevitably what is going to happen is someone or some group is going to show up at 5 o'clock on the 28th with something new and ask for another extension. So at some point, we have to make a judgment. The neighbors here are responding to our responses, and we would like 5 to 10 minutes to do a final response to their responses. I just don't see any need to continue the hearing. You have the extension to the 28th to make your decision.
Right, and we'll press forward then. Okay. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Holly Bertram. I'm 63 Division Avenue.
I know you're projecting well, but it's also for recording as well, microphone. Sorry.
Do I need to push anything or just?
No, just hold it up, please.
So I'm 63 Division Ave. A couple of days ago, I just got this, so this is all new to me. The whole traffic thing, Jeff, I can completely, it's a big concern. 10 years ago, my husband and I fought there on Division Avenue. And over these 10 years, we've seen more and more young families move into this neighborhood. And these kids, I know what to look out for when I'm coming home. And these kids ride out on their bikes, not looking, because they're kids. It happens. And it's getting more and more like that. And I worry, I don't have kids, but I'm going to worry about everybody else's because that's my job. You're supposed to care about everyone else around you. So that's a really big concern because our street, Division Ave, is a huge cut through that people come through, that me and a handful of neighbors have even thought we should be putting little bumps on it in the beginning and the top because of all the kids and the cars just speeding through. Not to mention all the cats that my husband and I have been taking care of in the community that have been hit from the cars just flying through. As far as the runoff, I know Kathy, you were talking about concern. I think my concern there, and I don't know how commercial building works, but I have a neighbor that had moved in on the one side of me, paved his entire front and side yard. And yes, they made him put tanks under to collect rainwater. When we have really extreme storms, we now get water in our basement because of that. So anyone below that, I worry about. I don't want to see them have to go through that. And as far as if you're concerned about the environment, if you have a building like this that is going to cause a rat problem, they're going to put out traps that are poisonous. You're going to destroy your predators like your hawks and your owls. That's a big concern. Even if then a fox would eat any of that, we have foxes in the neighborhood. You have possums. They're going to even eat some of that. That's a big concern. They're great for the neighborhood because they're cleaning up any mosquitoes or any ticks and anything like that. So you've got to keep a thought of that. As far as light pollution, I don't know how these trees are going to be, how big they are. Trees take time to grow. You want a nice fence off area so it's not encroaching into the neighbor's area. I know even on my husband and I living on the corner, we get some of the light pollution already on Tunxus in the winter more than the summer because, you have more bushes and shrubs growing. As far as traffic too, no one is using one car per unit. That's ridiculous. One bedroom apartment. My husband and I lived in a one bedroom apartment for years. We had 2 cars. It's common. So much of this, I don't have statistics, but it's common sense. It's just plain common sense that this big of a building should not be there. I don't even know how else to say it because it's just common sense. Think about your neighborhood. How would this look in your neighborhood? You'd probably be here sitting with the rest of us if you did. So, I don't really know what else to say as far as cars being parked. They are going to park on the street. You're always going to have overflow because you're not going to have enough spots. And we have that anyway now with some of the, houses that are rentals in our community. You have people parking on the street. I have one, since I'm on a corner lot, I have one on Elizabeth Street that they never use their driveway and they have a driveway that goes behind their house. Every car's parked on the street. I have another one that's across from us. A couple moved out. They use it for student housing in a way. And all of those guys park on the street. I have them pull up into my yard, 2 feet up into my yard where I've had to do landscaping. So to try to stop that. Trying to think what else there is. As far as Amazon, Yes, they do not. They're not going to go in the building. They're going to pull on the street and it's going to do a clog. They even do it on our street. If my husband parks in front of our house or anyone else parks in front of our house, Amazon will just park on the side, and then it's just every car has to wait to go through until Amazon moves or until any delivery truck. Yeah, I think that's it. It's common sense on all of these points. I don't need to give you statistics. I don't need to give you data. You live there, you see it.
Schwartz, 128 Sterling Street. I'm sure this is where you all would like to be spending the rest of your evening. Exposure to low-level noise, even below 50 decibels, can significantly impact human health and well-being. Studies have linked such noise exposure to various adverse effects: cardiovascular health. Chronic exposure to environmental noise has been associated with increased risk of hypertension and heart disease. Noise levels of 50 decibels or greater at night may elevate the risk of myocardial infarction by chronically increasing cortisol production. Mental health. Noise pollution has been linked to psychological effects such as annoyance, psychiatric disorders, and impacts on psychosocial well-being. Prolonged exposure can trigger the body's stress responses, including increased heartbeat and rapid breathing. Sleep disturbances. Even lower frequency noise can disrupt sleep patterns, leading to reduced sleep quality and associated health issues. Cognitive effects. Exposure to environmental noise has been associated with decreased school performance and cognitive impairments, including memory and attention deficits. A recent study by University College London found that living near an airport with constant exposure to airplane noise, particularly at night, can lead to stiffer and thicker heart muscles, increasing the risk of heart attacks and strokes. High noise levels were found to worsen heart structure and function, with daytime noise defined as above 50 decibels.
Thank you, sir. Right in the back. That was. Evening.
Good evening. My name is Michael Neve. I live at 41 May Street. I bought my house about 20 years ago. Since then, you elites have allowed my town, and especially my street, to go from single-family housing to doubles everywhere. And the parking problem, even on May, which is 3 streets over from this, is already a disaster. And already people, to avoid all those stoplights and the Stop and Shop, they're already starting to go down our streets, down May Street, down Gray Street, to avoid that. The traffic is already a disaster. Bashir, my neighbor, his son was hit by a car just this last summer. Because May Street has a big hump. The kid was on the hump. Now, if the kid was doing something stupid, who knows? But he was on his bicycle and he got hit. This is already an issue. Now, just want to say you guys did a great job. It's good to know that the George Soros I Hate America Fund is still going.
Sir, direct your comments now.
Okay, but, well, you're part of it. Now, I understand that all you nice guys with your cardigan shirts and your Tommy Hilfiger stuff would never allow this monstrosity anywhere near your house. Not one of you. And we all know that. And neither would they. So you putting this on us poor working people is really just not fair. Plus also, for the last 3 years, I've been told incessantly, I can't run my air conditioner, I can't water my lawn, I can't wash my car because there's water shortages and electrical shortages and gas shortages. So now you're telling me they use found electrons and natural gas and water for another 100 people in my neighborhood? So what have you been lying to me for the last 3 years? And especially the last 2? And you all sit there with the straight face looking at me like I'm the crazy one? I've got letters from you people telling me to stop using electricity, stop watering my lawn, stop washing my car. But now all of a sudden you found all this stuff. Oh, and by the way, the car wash goes off. It doesn't run 24/7, 365. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes, sir. I'm State Senator Tony Huang, a resident of Fairfield.
Yeah, sorry, just put the microphone up, please. Sorry.
You project well.
I am State Senator Tony Huang, resident of Fairfield as well. I want to begin by thanking all of you. As a public servant and a resident, this is yeoman's work, and God bless you all. And I know it's important to treat this with decorum and respect, and I respect all of you for your great work. I think it's important to recognize that Connecticut General Statute, Section 830G, is a very emotional and controversial bill impacting all of our communities for the past 30 plus years. And I think it is emotional. And you hear a lot of that in many of the conversations, and particularly in the town of Fairfield. You're going to see a lot more of it because of the possible moratorium coming up. So God bless all of you on that. And make no mistake about it, Connecticut certainly has a crisis in affordable, accessible, and diverse housing for many people. And it's for humane, economic, and social equity concerns, no doubt. Absolutely. But I also want to genuinely believe and offer that the real solutions has to be where property owners, neighborhoods, local government, state, and federal need to work together. And one of the real challenges of the current 830G statute is the fact that developers would actually have to increase their density in order to make it work economically. And that's the challenge. And that's a real challenge in regards to its impact on community. So as I say that, I felt it was important for me to speak, one as a citizen, but also applaud the neighborhood, the people that go about their business and had this thrust upon them. They don't have expert opinion. They've done yeoman's work. They don't have the luxury of high price and well-versed consultants. These are people that needed to have a voice, and they're presenting and having an opportunity. So I want to take a moment to applaud all of them. Sometimes they get very emotional, but it's understandable. It really is important for people to know that there is a process that their voices can be heard.
Only Ken does.
And I think it's important that to note that only public health and safety is a consideration that you all need to have in making your decision. And should this be rejected and get appealed, the courts look at this as a public health and safety question. So as I say that, I'm going to outline 4 points that were raised and repeated, and I would encourage this commission to weigh it heavily. And I think the first one is the fact that the density of the project. I've walked the neighborhood. I've seen that property outlay. It is a dense property line to property line. And it is exceptionally different than the rest of the community. And I hate to say it from a density standpoint, that what we have seen recent in climate change with floodwaters that occurred with train storms and the California fires that you see, that kind of density in that kind of a tightly packed neighborhood, it can happen very quickly in regards to public safety. I think the second point that was raised was the issue of fire access. I've walked the street. I've been there when there was construction done on that street. I couldn't get my car through. Can you imagine a fire truck? And in reading the report, they said they still can get there and they're going to plow through the cars. We're talking about seconds. We're talking about minutes that matter to life and death. And so for those that says it isn't an issue, it absolutely is an issue. When you talk about the tight neighborhoods of that, how quickly should a fire occur that spread to surrounding homes in that tight, dense population? It is an important risk and concern. And we should heed the public access in regards to our fire apparatuses, law enforcement, and ensuring safety. The third issue, it really reinforced, I believe it was Mr. Randolph who reiterated the traffic report when the experts for the applicant said there was no safety concern. Well, I can assure you, there are very few sidewalks on that. Kids and their parents walk to McKinley School. It's a downhill slope on that property. It's a danger. It's a danger for pedestrians, for bikers, and for vehicles. Make no mistake about it. And it's where local impact, for all of you that know the local neighborhoods, that can say, this is a safety risk. And there is a child at the end of that street whose parents love that child, but has a handicap. Death of hearing. A car coming down, visiting people with density, sometimes speeding down the hill. That is a public safety risk. Now they cobbled up the community without a lot of money, cobbled up an expert because they care about the idea that runoffs and contaminants not only impact their homes that are right across the street, but the runoff impact in the surrounding community. That is a new issue. So when I hear the applicant said there are no additional concerns that they need to rebut, I would offer to you that the 4 points that I just raised are significant public health and safety risks that must be weighed, because we don't want anything to happen. And thank goodness, thank God, nothing has. But we can't be putting into a position a building that increases that risk to public health and safety. It is in our best effort to recognize that. So I've kind of summarized it. I will be submitting my testimony in writing to the commission. But at the same time, I know the night is long, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have on this issue. But to me, it boils down to respect for the community and in essence, protection and public health and safety of the residents of that community and of our town. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Not for lack of understanding, I think we get it.
Try to simplify, and thank you very much for your efforts, and have a great week.
Thank you.
Sir,
You still have a right to talk, right? It's still
sir,
open.
I mean, it is, but I mean, I think enough has been said at this point, and
So maybe we can make an appointment in March.
I mean, no, I mean, the plan is to finish public comment tonight and finish the hearing. I think enough has been said at this point.
I still have questions, and I still have a right to speak.
So we're not gonna filibuster this. If you have like 5 minutes.
Filibustering anything. I want to bring up other issues. You cannot stifle me testifying here. Come on.
Give me 5 minutes, okay?
I wanted to bring up the insurance issues here.
Sir, give you 5 minutes, okay?
All right, insurance issues here.
Can you give him 2 minutes because you've already spoken? You've heard
Well,
your-
I didn't totally go through everything. I wanted to
5
bring up the
minutes.
insurance issues here with the change in this year.
Sir, 5 minutes though? 5 minutes, okay?
All right, what about the insurance issues here with changing this huge
yes, sir.
project going in here?
Yes, for
Good.
5,
Yeah,
sir,
fine, 5 minutes.
thank you.
All right, he's got 2 hours, 4 hours, I get 2 minutes. So the thing about it is here, there's a problem here, there is a major problem, risk of deaf child at the bottom of the street, but also seniors. Roger's hard of hearing, he's a combat veteran. He's right across the street from there. He wears hearing aids. And there's also in the proposal possible blasting because there's ledge there. So that's going to crack everybody's foundation. You're going to get water all over the place. I've been in the building industry for years. There's a high water table in the area. We know that there's ledge there. How are you going to get it out? You got to blast it out. And then also I checked with the Department of Transportation, state of Connecticut. They haven't even been contacted. That's a state road, Tungus Hill. I don't know what goes on. I mean, who runs this whole situation? The Department of Transportation has no input? I don't get it, do you? And then there's boreholes here. When you're doing a borehole test, just to put a bathroom in this town, you got to do all kinds of borehole tests. And you do have different soil conditions right within the same allotted area, sometimes within square feet of a project. You can have a soil or a clay condition totally different. And what happens here, I seen what they had about getting rid of the rainwater off the gutters and the leaders. That goes into a dry well. How do you get the water out of the dry well? You got to pump it out. I've been in situations where just a check valve will go and everything floods way back in and it goes all over the road. So come on, this whole situation is beyond. And the building itself being 60 feet tall, it's totally against the law. It's against federal law. It's against the Supreme Court decision in 1926 in Euclid. So that's for sure. We know that was upheld, that you can't have the distortion in any area. So if they have to go to court on this, Supreme Court ruled in their favor, you cannot distort the area by putting in anything that's not within which the structures are supposed to be. This is way, way out of that. And this also, their pictures is distorted because that's not level ground. It goes downhill, the whole thing. And my figures also, for safety figures, when you're talking about towing, there's only three tow companies that are all of that are assigned within this town to come and to take these out. So how long is it going to take 3 tow companies to come and take all these cars and trucks out? 12, 20 hours? The whole town will burn down. So we'll have another case just like in LA. So that's about what I have to say.
Thank you. Member of the public joining us remotely that wishes to be heard? By phone, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Anybody joining us on stage, Ms. Harrigan, or by signing up in chat or anything like that? Will any member of the public wish to be heard? Hearing none, I'll close the public comments. Attorney Hollister. Say 10 minutes or less. Or less, that'd be nice, yeah, but 10 minutes, please.
I'm going to start with Mr. Bauer responding to Mr. Ginter, but also I have to get something from Mr. Wentz. So go ahead.
Good evening, Commissioners. Saban Bauer, professional engineer with Cusitis Engineering. Just to briefly respond to some of the comments from Mr. Ginter, I do reiterate that everything that he has said could absolutely be done at an administrative level as a condition of approval. In general, I have not had a lot of time to look at his comments just because they did come in at pretty short notice this afternoon. But from what I was able to determine, there may be a few items that we need to address, but I think in general, as he said, the principle of the design is reasonably sound with these minor modifications. I feel that we would be able to get a satisfactory drainage analysis that could absolutely be reviewed by your engineering department again. In particular, there were a couple items in regards to, excuse me, where the water is flowing, and as well as from the public. It's not really in our purview to determine where the final destination goes, as long as we are not taking impact from our property and negatively impacting the street drainage system, which, with some minor modifications, I believe we can achieve. We can absolutely expand the system if we need to account for a lack of factor safety in the exfiltration, as Mr. Ginter mentioned. And we did use a factor of safety. It just was not as aggressive as he was suggesting. And during construction, we can absolutely provide a phasing plan and dewatering and S&E controls to create a better, lower chance of adverse impact of siltation on down gradient properties in the street. I'm happy to answer any questions briefly, but I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening. Greg Del Rio, professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. So I ask that you consider also context and reasonableness. So Soundview, we've heard a lot of traffic. There's less than 20 cars an hour in the peak hour on Soundview between Stratfield and Beaver. We're adding less than 10 to that. So a little bit of context there. I don't know, responding to Simcoe's letter here, I don't know if they conducted a site visit. I would ask that question. They made a lot of comments here on trip and parking generation, which is all opinion and conjecture. There's not a single table, data, study referenced in their response. So there's not a comparable study to substantiate any of these opinions. There's no data, there's not even a source. But yet they question the standard that's used and the methodology that's used. If I went to this DOT with any other methodology, they would say, what are you doing? We follow the standards, acceptable standards. Now, regards with traffic trip generation, I'll just give you an example. This came up at 110 Woodrow, and we went out and we did a count at an independent site for you. So you have that information. And we showed that ITE trip generations are very reasonable and accurate, and they are applicable to Fairfield. That was accepted back then. So you can look at the record for that. Again, most of this is all based on opinion, so I won't belabor that. Parking. So a lot of residents, and it was mentioned today, and it was one of my points, when you have a single family house and you have a driveway and you have multiple cars, yeah, you tend to park in the street because you don't want to block the other one in. That happens a lot, right? Not all the time, not everywhere, not every house, but a few do it. It's less common actually with the multifamily housing when you have a parking lot because you're not blocking in the other car. So you use the spaces in the parking lot before you ever come out into the street, typically. Yeah, reasonableness and context. There was one crash in 2020. We actually had that, but our studies, our methodologies go back 3 years. That's the standard. That one crash, I just looked at it. We actually have it in our database. One crash back in 2020. I don't know if there was ones before that. I don't know how far back they went when they dug for data, but we have the one crash. It was someone who hit a parked car while she was adjusting her seat and she slipped and hit the accelerator and ran into the parked car. So you can look that up. I'm pretty sure that's the one they gave you. Sight distance. Well, then all driveways on the street are unsafe and they're backing out. We're not backing out. We're coming out, always turning around, and we're coming out face forward. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. As far as the sight line and sight distance on a parked vehicle, again, 131, I think it was, Beach Road Court case determined that a parked vehicle is not to be considered on sight lines. And even if you go to AASHTO, our design guidelines, it says, if practical, to remove a parked car, if practical. That's it. Thank you.
Chair and members, a couple other responses to Mr. Monteleone's traffic report obtained by Mr. Ravecchio. I want to first note for the record that Mr. Monteleone is not present here tonight. He's not apparently online. I have personal experience with Mr. Monteleone. He opposed two 830G developments that I worked on in New Canaan, and I want to note for the record that in both of those cases, and the reports are noted on his credentials that he submitted. His reports were rejected by the State Department of Transportation, the Planning and Zoning Commission's traffic expert, and the Planning and Zoning Commission itself. As Mr. Del Rio said, there's just no data. I would point out that his analysis depends on vehicles erroneously entering one of the garages. In other words, Murphy's Law, which is improper and speculative. And he also completely misstates our parking plan, probably because he wasn't aware of the details. Mr. Ravecchio said that we made a mistake in counting the affordable spaces on our floor plan. That was not a mistake. Our affordable housing plan from day one has said 14 units. We can do the math, 46 times 30%. We intentionally put 15 units on the floor plan so that the commission and staff, if they wanted to, could have input into the distribution of where those units are. Indeed, Commissioner Braun brought that up in her December 19th memo. So there's one unit to come off the floor plan. We should collectively and cooperatively decide where that is, but that was not a mistake. I want to point out that staff has a response from the fire marshal to their request. Does the fire marshal's office have any comments on the safety of the development? The answer came back yesterday, no. There's a question, where's the dumpster? The dumpster is in the Soundview garage, and the dumpsters are wheeled out to the curb and picked up. Finally, I need to respond to the long litany of articles and comments about noise and public health. My first question is, what noise? It's a building. It's in the neighborhood business district, which I assume has lots of noise built into it. But I gave you, and I'll finish with this, I gave you a response to all the stuff about myocardial infarctions in Milan, Italy, and everything else that was submitted to you, and pointing out the very substantial body of research that says that affordable housing is a positive impact on public health. And that's because when people have a safe and affordable place to live, they generally experience better public health outcomes. I think the commission has all the information you need to make a decision. So I appreciate that we close the hearing, and I think you have the time and the ability to make your decision. And I'll end with that, and thank you for your patience.
Another question from myself. We were talking last time about comparability with the market rate units versus the affordable units. I know in your most recent memo, somebody had said 86% less, and I don't know where that number came from. I think it was a quick calculation, but it looked like to me that the affordable units were smaller than their counterparts. Am I wrong in that?
Yes, you're not correct.
That's fine, because I would say one of the things is that in my view with comparability, and I note your point that it doesn't, similarity and stuff, but if there's a systematic decision that the affordable units are smaller even by 10%, I wouldn't deem that to be comparable. And I'll look at it again myself, but
yes, what you should look at is the range.
Use the microphone.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, what you should look at is the range in floor sizes of the 1 bedrooms and the 2 bedrooms. They are all within the same range. They're, and I don't know where the 86% came from, but they are all within a fairly tight range. There's only 3 1-bedroom unit types and sizes, and the affordables and the market rates are all within that, and same for the 2 bedrooms.
But you're saying in a range, like normally I see them almost identical, 1 bedroom market versus 1 bedroom affordable are like the same size. Are you saying at some point though that some are 5% higher the market rate, or?
No, it's not. It's less than 5%.
That's fine.
The ones in the 2s are different, but that's because there's another bedroom.
That's just the market stuff.
Yeah.
Is it quick?
Can I ask a clarifying question? So I'm sorry, we've been getting a lot of contradictory information on the fire marshals, the fire department review. Could you clarify?
I think after hearing both sides, I would like to, Mr. Wemp, but we will reach out to the fire department.
Thank you.
Not just about maybe even the commissioner himself, but figuring out what was said to, at the neighbors thing with the, I think, assistant commissioner, whatever the title was there. We'll reach out to that from staff, because that's fair to get some clarity
We
on.
actually have a recording of the
We don't.
conversation.
No, we don't.
Fair enough.
Commissioner Noonan, is it
Um,
possible for the applicant to resubmit the documents that are illegible? Because as you know, I pulled a memo from 5 years ago. We are learning as a community as we go. If we can't read them, they're not helpful.
you repeat what you said in your memo about that, because there was something about that already, right?
Well, we submitted everything at the proper scale and number of copies that we were asked to do.
Thank you. Mr. Went?
There's nothing that I'm aware of that's illegible. There are
You can't read the text.
reduced versions of some of the plans in the bound book that's tabbed, but there are larger versions of those plans in the record that are the identical plan.
Okay. These are available at the office. I mean, you have big, massive survey documents that are reduced size that are hard to read, either by zooming in maybe, or by reviewing them in person. So
there's nothing illegible in the record.
You can't zoom in. The text is illegible. Maybe it's a scanning issue.
You can go, maybe, but I think it'd be best if you go to the office, though, if there's some documents that need.
Happy to talk about it after the.
So I think that's it. I will close the hearing on this application and adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for your